Hello, Vault Dwellers, Wastelanders, Scavers, and Vagabonds. Welcome back to Vault Talk, the show where we recap and discuss each episode of the Fallout TV show on Amazon Prime. This week we'll be discussing Episode 7, The Radio. But we're not discussing alone. No, I have a fine panel of Fallout folk here with me tonight. Let me introduce them to you. We have Will. How you doing, Will?
Hi, Jess. Doing great. How are you?
I'm very well. You ready to talk Vault?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And we have Ray. Hey, Ray.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing down there?
Doing well.
Got the vault set at a nice, comfortable temperature right now.
Oh, yeah. The air handlers are working hard.
I'm glad your purifier chip is still working. And we've also got Andrew. Hey, Andrew, how are you?
Howdy, what's going on?
Just ready to dive into this episode, but I can't till we introduce our special guest, or maybe Andrew. Will you introduce our guest tonight?
I think he's actually been on the show before, has he not? I don't know, it was a couple of years ago maybe. But joining us tonight is my brother, all the way from the wasteland of California, the NCR representative. We have Steven. Hey, Steven.
Hey, welcome. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Really excited to talk about episode 7 with you.
Have all your bears got two heads out there in California, I hear?
Well, we killed them all, but I'm sure when they come back, they will have two heads.
They will.
They will come back. Bears and gulpers. Oh, my. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to have a local boy to the TV show here with us tonight. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Summary of this week's episode. This is pulled from Wikipedia again. Residents of Vault 4 gather as Lucy is prepped for expulsion from the vault. Maximus leaves with her. I like how they make it sound like he had a choice. Lucy invites Maximus to live with her in Vault 33. Happily ever after. Thaddeus abandons CX-404 and makes contact with the Brotherhood. Lucy and Maximus eventually catch up with Thaddeus after learning that he is turning into a ghoul, for which the Brotherhood would put him to death. So Thaddeus relinquishes the head. Lucy continues her journey alone, while Maximus stays behind to distract the Brotherhood. Back in the vault, Norm secretly breaks into Vault 31. Meanwhile, the ghoul, having determined Moldaver's location, reunites with CX-404, calling her Dogmeat. In 2077, a younger Moldaver, then named Ms. Williams curiously, reveals that the war-profiting conglomerate behind Vault-Tec shelved her cold fusion resource despite its potential to provide unlimited energy and prevent war with China over dwindling oil resources. She persuades Cooper Howard that he cannot trust his wife. Editorial here. I think they persuade him that he cannot trust Vault-Tec and should record her conversations with the company board. So that's the summary. It's a kind of long one, but I always love the way that the summary for the episode kind of hits the themes, but kind of misses the bigger points. But speaking of finer points, Will, you have any info for us on the credits this week? Director, writer, any of that good stuff?
Sure. So this was actually directed this week. It was a dual effort by the directors of the previous 2 episodes that we did. Frederick E. Otoy, who did last week's episode, and he was that one that had a very extensive, director list. And then Claire Kilner, who had done the week before. So they teamed up for this one, and it was written by Chaz Hawkins, who not too much work for him, really. He has a lot of stuff being done with camera and electrical department, but not really too much writing. He did do a couple of pieces like this, The Passenger, which is like a short film, I guess, and The Quarantines, which is a TV series a couple years back. I hadn't heard of them. A couple of acting stints.
Did you say he worked with the electric and sound department, but now he is writing episodes?
Yes, it doesn't say exactly what he did, but there's a whole list of TV series and movies that he was with the camera and electrical department in. And he has 2 acting credits and 3 writing credits, including Fallout.
That's a cool jump to make within the industry. That's
yeah.
You know how it often works in Hollywood. You're a writer, you might even go to school for writing. You've got this whole idea for the best screenplay in the world, but no one's going to listen. So you kind of work your way up the ranks. You schmooze people, you hold their light, and you don't get in the way or else Christian Bale yells at you. But this is what you do.
Good for you!
Or Kevin Spacey touches you.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, no.
So Will, did you say that there was another writer on this one too?
Nope, he's the only credited writer for this one. It's just the directors are teamed up.
Okay, awesome. Well, before we dive into the blow by blow, the recap on the episode, I want to ask Steven real quick since you're guesting this week. Steven, have you seen the whole show? What do you think? And what's your experience with Fallout?
Holy cow. Putting me on the spot right away.
Big question. Yeah. I saw you leaning back. I had to pull you back in.
Is that it? Yes, I have watched the whole series almost twice. I've rewatched the series and rewatched episode 7 in preparation for this conversation. My experience with the game is really through you folks and particularly through Andrew. I played, as Andrew mentioned, I was on the show a couple years ago and played on his console a little bit of 76.
Oh,
But
really?
hadn't really played any other Fallout until probably a week ago when I purchased a PlayStation 4. I wasn't ready to splurge on a PlayStation 5, and it was built for PlayStation 4, that version of the game. So I started playing through. As I mentioned before we started the show, it's broken my heart with some lost saves, but that's okay. I'm going to build back better and stronger than ever. I've been watching as many videos as I have been playing the game, actually, because without kind of tapping into a social network, it is a lonely game and a frustrating game.
It
So,
can be at first. But you talk about breaking your heart. That is the Bethesda way. You know, the wasteland
is it?
giveth
Okay.
and taketh away,
Mhm.
crashing and all
Mhm.
that.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm very, very much a noob in playing the game, at least playing Fallout 4, but I'm looking forward to ending my relationship with the franchise.
So, quick question for you, and actually everybody. Okay, let's get some anecdotal talk here, because this is the first time we've had a guest who hasn't played a lot of Fallout in the past. Have you, in your regular life, friends, social circles like we're talking about, come across people who ask you now about Fallout who haven't before, or who have been talking about the show and are interested in the games?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is a coworker who has a Fallout Boy on his desk at work. And so I said, hey, I recognize that as a bobblehead. And surprisingly, I mean, he was like, oh, yeah, I started playing it. I played the game before Fallout. That's not called Fallout. And I don't know if it's called Wasteland or something like that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So he was very familiar with the games. And I was like, oh, so you're watching the series? No, I haven't watched the series. So I don't know what's going on with him, but I'll keep putting a
One
bug
of
in his ear
those.
to watch
There are
this
those
show because it's great.
there's purists out there who won't
Yeah.
play anything past 2. They think only the
Mhm.
first 2 games are real Fallout, the
Yeah.
top-down isometric games.
Mhm.
Like,
They don't count.
3D. Oh, that's not Fallout. That's not Fallout.
Hasn't been a new Fallout since 2000. What are you talking about? Oh, except for Wasteland 3 in 2020.
And Shelter in 2015.
Oh, of course, the best Fallout game. Will, how about you?
Yep.
Well, it's funny you ask because I was just telling them before you logged in, but before the show, that there's a woman at my work who she had recently been trying to talk to me about House of Dragons. And I kept, oh gosh, I keep forgetting to watch it, kind of putting it off. And then she's like, I've been watching Fallout. She's telling me that. I was like, oh, really? I kept kind of quiet. And she's like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's neat. She's like, it's based on a video game, I heard. And I was like, yes, it is. And I was like, I made it as awkward as possible, like not intentionally, but just because I was like, all right, how do I hold this all back or do I just unload on her,
What level of dumping?
And I told this story to my son. He's like, the woman has no idea what she almost just brushed up against. But so I didn't really tell her that I was actually very well acquainted with the whole game in the show and all that stuff. I sort of let it go.
You kept it
But-
cool. That's
I
what
mean,
you do.
yeah.
she's a coworker. You're gonna see her again. You have plenty of time for drips and dribbles all over the whole time. You don't got to unleash it all at once.
Right.
You just dunk her in the water. Just let her bob around. The gulper will be there eventually.
It's true. Wear a Fallout shirt. That's always a good icebreaker.
There you go. Right.
Yeah, but and that answers your question is, yeah, just sort of random people out there watching it and talking about it, want to talk about it. So
I think that's just so cool. Ray, how about you?
No. So none of my family games, those type of games, and I avoid people at all cost.
Absolutely. I mean, you're on your porch. If they start to go on your property, you pull out the shotgun, right?
Well, he'd
No,
have to be
you'll
outside
let
to
the
go on his
dogs in.
porch.
You
yeah.
let the dogs at him. Perfect.
And you're retired, so you don't have any people coming up and awkwardly talking to you.
And Andrew, I know you at work. I can picture you guys there in your radioactive hazmat suits, being like,
Yes.
"Hey, did you see that new Fallout game?"
Let's see. I don't know. Like one of the ladies at work asked what our podcast was. I said Fallout. She was like, "Oh," and didn't continue on at all. So I wasn't sure if they knew.
Was
what
there a
that
spark of
was.
recognition, or a simply like?
Yeah, there was like an air of recognition, but not a continued, digging into the topic at all. Plus, I'm not really good at being effusive with the hey, you got to check out my podcast. Like I'm not big on that for some reason.
No, of course not.
But when I wear like one of my Fallout shirts or something, and I go through a store, like though the other day I was at a gas station, someone was like, "Oh, you checking out the show?" I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good. You like it?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm digging it, man." So it's
Nice.
just out and about. People, it's definitely in the air. You know what I mean? It's people
Yeah.
are like checking it out, and there's always going to be people on the internet who tear stuff down, but for the most part, it's all been really good, reviews, high praise, and all that. So
It's been such serious vibes. I mean, aside from the coworkers who don't think there was any Fallout after Fallout 2, really good vibes. Well, that's awesome. I love that it's in the zeitgeist.
Yes.
I love that we have a moment. I love that I can talk to coworkers, and yes, they know now. It's funny because a lot of them, like a number of people, know that I'm pretty heavily involved in the community. At least my boss working on the fundraisers, stuff like that. And now she has a touchstone. I do feel that some people in my life might be a little bit chagrined when they see the kind of level of violence and bloodshed in the shows. Like, if you're a Fallout fan, you're used to this. But I think the uninitiated watching this might be like, is every episode the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones?
at the same time, this is not horror movie violence. This is like Quentin Tarantino style violence for the sake of like way overdoing it for the effect. It's like her stomping that fucking rad roach 12 times. You know what I mean? And like super violent, the blood exploding everywhere, all this stuff. But like it's overdone for comedic effect. You know what I mean? Like it's not a disgusting, bloody horror grossness, but I mean it's totally gross, but it's Tarantino style.
Like that foot we're going to get to later on in this
That's
episode.
so awesome. Oh, that's so gory and
It
great.
is so like gross, it's disgusting, I guess, but then so hilarious.
It's really funny.
It's so
Just
grody.
The way that toe hangs is classic. Classic.
I was hoping the sock was going to stay on this time. I mean, I'm like, oh, don't do it again, man. Don't do it again.
Just peeling it off. Ouch.
Oh, no.
Well, that is awesome. So, speaking of things actually happening this episode, let's dive in. So, the episode is called The Radio, which we'll see as it goes on how that figures in. But it starts out with a familiar song. Again, after last episode, after we finally got the Fallout theme for the first time when they look at the NCR flag, we're starting again, zooming in over the desert to a couple of figures, cutting a fine figure in some old NCR Ranger style combat armor. The NCR Ranger jackets, and you get a real Fallout moment there as we zoom in.
What game is that from, Jess?
That is
What
from
game is that from?
New Vegas. So the Mojave Rangers and the NCR, they came together. And so they were now NCR Rangers. But really, the look that we're looking at is kind of the New Vegas Ranger outfit.
And NCR stands for the New California Republic. It's the government that was established.
Exactly. So the NCR Rangers are digging in the dirt, and they have a metal detector, which reminds me of a metal detecting my pappy would pull that out by the golf course. And we would go looking for stuff sometime.
You say the metal detector my pappy would pull out?
Yeah, my
Nice.
grandfather, we called him
Nice.
Pappy. But what they are looking for is actually apparently lead, which I'm not positive
No, lead farmers.
metal detector actually detects lead. It must.
Oh, I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. Does it do lead?
Yeah, they use
Yeah,
them
it's not-
to.
It's not
The-
magnetic. So it's
It's
Yeah,
not
they-
magnetic, yeah.
They find old musket balls and stuff like that in the Civil War battlefields, and
interesting.
It's a density thing.
I know there's some metal it doesn't detect, so that's why I asked. There was some
Yeah,
metal, maybe it's
maybe like
aluminum.
aluminum or yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense. For our British friends, that's aluminium. We do understand. So these rangers
Thanks for the
are
translation. They never would have understood.
you got it. Sometimes you got to watch out for the limeys. Yeah, I'm gonna cut that out. Anyway.
Now you can't.
So they're a little disheveled, and you realize that maybe they're not your standard rangers. One's a little bit kind of low stature. The other is he's just kind of walking with a bit of a gait. And they get back and they are emptying all their metal into a container. And the house they walk up to is classic Fallout 4 prefab. Did you guys notice how good the house looked?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like you get into your build menu, if you can build with wood, and it's right
Go to
there in the
wood.
prefab. Mhm.
Yep. Prefab structures, wood,
Up,
bam. Option
right,
1 or
up.
2. I don't know.
all the way to the
I
right.
have explored
Second
those
from left.
menus. Haven't used them, but I've explored them.
So I really admired the look here. And they're taking off their helmets as they're dumping their spoils of metal, which you assume that they're kind of collecting to melt down. You don't know it's lead at this point necessarily. And you see, oh, it's an older guy and, oh, a teenager. And you realize probably, hey, that's the guy and his son. And they're out there collecting the metal. And then you cut into the house. And as they walk in, you see the ghoul at the table eating.
Eating a young girl.
No, he's eating a meal.
Eating Sandra. Poor Sandra. So
And
tender.
the father spies this through the door. So he kind of comes in slowly, very carefully, and almost as though he recognizes this guy. And then his
Oh, he
son,
absolutely does, right?
right. And so you realize immediately that he recognizes him. And he's scared. But instead of saying anything to the ghoul, as he kind of comes in and then stays near the back, he calls out Sandra for his daughter because he's obviously worried about her. There's a long pause, and the ghoul is just chewing. And then
Yeah, eating away.
he says it again. And they made the scene longer than it needed to be for sure. I think they wanted the audience to also be like, did he kill her? Would he go that far? And then no, she comes up and pours him a drink at the table. So
Oh, we know he
visible
likes his
relief.
ass jerky.
So at that point, he's eaten. And the ghoul recognizes, and it was kind of a low chuckle, and says, ho ho, you thought.
That's
You know,
that same joke from Game of Thrones where Ramsay was eating the sausage. Oh, you thought it was. Sorry. Never mind.
Oh, I actually thought he just was joking that he thought he killed her or hurt her. But actually eating?
Eating
Oh
her.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
That was
Cannibal.
the
that's
for
what they were
sure.
trying to lead you to.
Oh yeah.
That went over my head. I guess good person check.
He's eating the girl.
Never even
See
occurred
what
to
your
me.
build's like.
So
The
the dad,
Lucy archetype.
Yes, exactly.
the dad tells her to back up and get away, and she does. And so the ghoul basically starts to talk to him and explain why he's there. He pulls out the letter. Oh, he asks about how he's doing and his son,
His
right?
son. Yeah, his
Yeah,
older
his
son.
older
It's like-
son.
It's like, I thought you had 3 sons,
Three
right? Unless I was
sons.
misinformed or something.
Rufus?
Yeah, that's what he says.
Right.
Either I'm out of date or I thought you had 3 children.
That must make you Tommy.
Also, you do recognize that they knew each other before, too, because he says lead farming, honest work, and he's like, I might still have some of your lead in me, which is how you know, hey, these two definitely know each other. They fought before. And there's a good chance. I mean, I don't know if you think so, but I imagine the dad maybe was an NCR Ranger, and that's why he has the armor. And now, yeah, the
I
NCR
think
has
so.
fallen, or at least fallen in the area. So
Yeah.
he's retired or.
Yeah. Or he was either in the Rangers or the Highway Patrol.
Well, because you're implying that there has to be because they have a past in their fight. It's not that that guy could have been a bounty hunter and also killed some NCR people or something.
He could have been.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm only thinking that because of the armor, but you're right.
Buy it by ill means. you know?
Meaning that he knew exactly how ruthless the ghoul could be and his behavior. But Ray, why do you suspect he was in the highway patrol with that armor?
Because the actor is Eric Estrada.
That's awesome. So he was in Chips, right?
Yeah.
I don't
John
know.
and Ponch. He was Ponch.
Paunch and shit.
Awesome. I don't know if I ever saw that show.
I did. I yelled it out right away almost. I was like, Ponch!
The ghoul is about his son, and he pulls out this letter.
Well, and the dad mentions Adam, or is the name, mentions that he hadn't seen his son, the older son, in several years, that he had run off with that mad
It had been
Right.
2 years, Mad Woman Up in the Hills, right? And so, but he does say the line, so that must make you Tommy. And that's when the dad realizes, seeing the letter, seeing that he knows the son's name, what did you do? He's asking his son what he did because he's suddenly scared. I mean, he was already scared, but now he's seeing, okay, there's something going on here. Worse. So the ghoul says, I got this letter off your son. He implies, does he say the son is dead? I think he just implies the son is dead.
I think the hole through the letter
Implies it, exactly.
with the bloody hole. Yeah.
And so he says he's looking for this mad woman up in the hills named Moldaver, but he can't seem to find the location because it's a little difficult to read.
He blasted it away.
But then he says, well, your son here seems he was given some money to give to a courier to escort an Enclave scientist back to her location. So you realize here, whoa, the money that Ma June got to set up a courier and set up so that he would travel to Moldaver came through his son here, Tommy.
Ma June, who was that? Was that the lady at the store in town?
Yeah, and
I thought all you dipshits
Philly.
were dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right. That lady.
And she had her leg blown out because she would have been the one escorting him. When he said paid a courier, she was either going to keep him safe for a little bit and hire somebody, or she was going to be the actual courier escorting him. But her leg was shot, and that's why she had to use Lucy.
Goosey. You almost said goosey.
I did. But so he knows that Tommy knows where this location is. And obviously, Eric Estrada says, tell him. Tell him what he needs to know, or we're all dead. He's going to kill us all. And of course, the son's hesitant. And I saw something here that I hadn't seen in previous viewing. So I thought for a while, because here what happens is the son ends up drawing on the ghoul and shooting him, and the ghoul shoots Tommy. Shoots Tommy dead. I thought here that the ghoul was taunting him to get to that point. You know what I mean? That the son might not have pulled on him if the ghoul hadn't have taunted him. But Tommy does tell him what he wants to know, but not before he starts to kind of say why he was doing it, why he was fighting for the brother. And he stands up to the ghoul. And while he's doing that, the ghoul goes, huh, did you catch that? I feel like the ghoul might have just taken the information about the location and left. But when he saw the son exhibit backbone in that way, he's like, this might be a problem. And so he pushed.
Oh, because he thinks because he killed him, he's going to come back for revenge. Right. No, yeah, I see that.
And he says that there. And I thought originally he just said, yep, this is what you're going to do. But I think he didn't decide that until the son, a bit of backbone, and started back talking and showed that he had this idealist streak. And the
Not around the ghoul, you don't have no backbone.
Right? This is going to be a problem. And so he says, what are you going to do? Draw on me? If not now, you're going to come after me? And so the son goes to shoot him. And of course, the ghoul puts him right down.
It's too awesome.
Yeah, but he just winged him. Shot him in the shoulder.
That's what it looked like, too. I was trying to figure that out because it did look like he got shot in the shoulder. But when the dad was holding him as the ghoul walks out the door, he was holding him. I was trying to look for life in him, and I couldn't really discern that.
Yeah.
So I was wondering.
Tommy got winged, so you think he's fine? But I mean,
it could be.
You get winged with the ghoul's weapon, and that blows your fucking arm off.
Yeah, it is.
He has different bullets, like we discussed. There are different bullets, but my interpretation was that he's dead, that he killed him so he wouldn't come after him.
I thought so too. I didn't see that he only winged him, though. I thought he got him in the...
I was left unsure, so there we go. We have all three sides.
There you go.
Maybe if you hit him in the shoulder, it was like the gun arm. Was it the gun arm or the opposite shoulder?
Looked like he got him in his left arm.
Yeah, it was
his left shoulder.
But he walked on out without saying a word while the dad's crying, holding the corpse. So then there was only one. This is one of those points where, once again, you've seen multiple times, maybe there is no saving Cooper. You know what I mean? He is too far gone. He has become a truly bad guy who just doesn't seem to care at all.
Until you mentioned dogs.
A little bit there, for sure. Anyway, did you guys have anything else on this scene you wanted to mention?
Only that I'm unsure. I'm unsure about what his shooting arm is because that gun was so goddamn far from him.
Yeah.
That he wasn't close to pulling on the ghoul.
Not the best decision going for that.
Yeah.
So you can somewhat understand how the ghoul is the way he is because he's been having to survive up there for a really long time. And you're going to see a lot of bad stuff and get really, really jaded over that time.
Yeah, he's had to
Yeah.
become more mercenary over the years, for sure. And there are several reasons for this. I mean, the show shows us a bit of the transformation from the past to now, and we see some reasons for it, but we also know that he's been on the edge of going feral for a long time, having to get this drug and do whatever he can, whatever he has to in order to get Caps to survive. And I almost feel like, if anything, that has hardened him even more.
Yeah,
last
and this
year.
was sort of a little bit of a regression in my mind to of his actions, sort of back to the way he was. Because if you remember one of the earlier episodes, I was thinking, like after his encounters with Lucy and stuff, that he was starting to have like a little bit of self introspection on just how far he has fallen and changed from before the war.
And introspection doesn't necessarily change a guy. He might recognize, doesn't mean he's going to change back. But that's why I do think that he might have given the kid a chance if the kid hadn't been. He's just been around long enough. He could tell it was going to be a problem. Also, I wanted to mention, I found out what gun, that pistol shotgun that he uses, the ghoul has. It's an MTS 255 shotgun revolver. It's actually it's a Russian-made. It's a Russian-made hunting shotgun called the MTS 255, and it's available as a mod for Fallout 4 and some other games.
Just since the show came out, or it's like it was a mod previously?
No, it was mod previously, yeah. This version was in 2016, it looks like, last updated 2018. I pulled up a mod right here, but it is a real gun at least, so there is some background to it. I'm not sure that's
So
the
Game
exact
Noob-
model. That's what it looks like.
Game noob question here. Clearly, PC allows mods, and I think I saw a mod menu on PlayStation. Are the consoles just as flexible on adding mods as PC?
They're not as flexible. PC obviously is where the majority of mods can be and all kinds of things around them. Both Xbox and PlayStation do have access to some mods through that mod menu there. PlayStation is by far the most restrictive. PlayStation, you can download mods, but they can't add any new files to the game, any new actual assets. So you can get mods that kind of reconfigure things, that mixes dialogue already in the game, or takes things that are here and puts them there, maybe change the texture of the houses to match something else. But you can't bring in new files. So like you're not going to be able to download Spider-Man suit for your Vault Dweller, or you can't dress him like Batman or give him a lightsaber, that sort of thing. Xbox, you can do a few more.
Fallout feed flag.
Or the Fallout feed flag, not available on PlayStation. Which, why wasn't that in the game already? I don't know. Anyway.
Free advertisement.
Exactly.
Should have known we were going to make a podcast.
I was getting all confused. I have too many platforms, I guess. I was like, wait, no, you can on PlayStation. I had it, but I forgot that was when I was playing on Xbox.
Yeah, it's a major restriction. And then Xbox is in between. You can't do things like script extenders and such like that. But yeah, good question. Is that MTS 255 available? Definitely on PC, probably on Xbox, but I don't know. Okay, so moving on with the show. We saw last week Cooper entering the church and going to that meeting at the end of the episode. Well, now he is in the meeting there, and the woman is starting to speak, and she's kind of talking about the state of Hollywood, the state of Vault-Tec in America, about how Vault-Tec is evil. And she says, we have more in common with the regular men and women of China. I believe she says China specifically, but she's talking about the regular men and women of the enemy than we do with the people ruling our country right now. Talking about how capitalism's taken over and people are just being used. And at that point, with Cooper, who, as we know, fought in the war, sitting next to his buddy Charlie Whiteknife there, he says, well, that is about the biggest bullshit. And so he starts to stand up, and she says, Mr. Howard, I didn't hear you. And so turns around and he says, yeah, that is a bunch of bullshit. And I think Cooper felt like she was attacking the troops in a way. But Moldaver, who, did they call her Moldaver at the time, or is she under a different name at this point?
Yeah, different name.
Miss Williams.
Miss Williams. She says, I'm glad you're here. And so she starts to challenge him.
She's like, oh, I didn't realize America's favorite gunslinger was so sensitive. And he talks about, well, he has his principles. And she's like, well, those principles, how much did Vault-Tec pay you for those? And then he hits back. Everyone has in America, can make a living, has a sponsor, and he's proud to do what he does to make a living.
Right, which makes sense. They're under a very capitalist system. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. I'm not bending my principles working for Vault-Tec. Although in the back of his head, there's a question right now if he actually might be. But, but he's not quite there yet. He does know hanging out with people putting down the troops and what he thinks America stands
Yeah,
for.
yeah. So she calls him out saying there's a lot of money in selling the end of the world, to
Mhm.
which he replies that I'm sure there's a lot of money in selling political ideology that ends in breadlines. So
What a great
a little
line.
bit
Like
of back and forth there, yeah.
Cooper, Howard, like the Ghoul has one-liners in the future, but here he's got speeches.
Yeah.
Actor Cooper has speeches, and that was a good one.
And then you hear some random woman back was fascist. Like the crowd's all getting into the whole thing.
Yeah, that's how he sees it. That this woman is preaching fascism, and I mean it's very McCarthy-esque before the Great War at this point in America, where they are constantly, if you don't like somebody, they're red.
I do like, she has a line where he says that she's a communist, and she says that communist is a dirty word that society used to badmouth people who weren't insane.
Yeah, that is a good line. Really, they use it to badmouth anyone who disagrees with them. You don't like somebody, it's like Salem witch trials. Isn't that kind of what the McCarthy period was like? You don't like somebody, oh, you saw them talking to somebody they shouldn't. Oh, you know,
You just call them a communist.
yeah, you saw them out there. Goody Henshaw was casting a spell, and we got to drown her. What we got to do?
Get them canceled.
Communist, exactly. So they're talking separately. Cooper decides he will hear her out a little bit. How do you know my wife? And so this is where she's talking to him in the hallway that she had a company that was working on cold fusion. She talks about how she had developed a product that Vault-Tec really wanted, and she wasn't going to give it to them. She was on the verge of a breakthrough. And so Vault-Tec purchased every company that Moldaver had ever worked for in the past.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, until basically
Get all the little bits, anything that could have escaped. Yeah.
until they basically owned all of her work and was taking that knowledge to steal from her, basically. They wanted to own it, they did. What are they going to do with it? They're going to put it on a shelf.
He calls her a millionaire communist, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, exactly. So what does that make you, a millionaire communist? And she has another good line about hypocrisy.
Yeah, hypocrisy like violence in your movies. If you only let the bad guys use it, the bad guys win. So
I like this battle of wits here. I like her as a character, and it's good seeing her again, too, because so far this whole show, we've heard about Moldaver a ton. We've seen her on flags, seen her on wanted posters, and we just saw her in the vault, though, that first episode coming in as part of a Raider crew. So now we get the idea more to her.
Do you think she's influenced by any in-game characters that you guys are familiar with?
Not that I know of.
And does Moldaver mean anything to us yet?
Oh, that's a good
that
question.
word.
I'm looking it up.
I can think of.
Her character's name is Lee Moldaver, but I don't know where that would come from. Nope. I got nothing.
Just a name. Interesting. Okay. I don't know. Did we talk about this before? I was kind of interested in like Cooper Howard. Is that a nod to Todd Howard and stuff like that?
That elicited just some no comments. When that's been asked in interviews, when it's been asked in interviews, Todd looks a little embarrassed and turns a little bit pink. And
definitely,
the director said no comment. Yeah,
interesting.
Without a doubt. Cooper, I don't know where that came from. It's just a cool name. So she suggests that he should find out more about what Vault-Tec is up to. Find out what might be going on with them and spy on your wife to learn the evils of Vault-Tec. Now, he doesn't actually want to spy on his wife, but he does want to know what she might be getting mixed up in for her protection. Kind of like the seed that was already planted by Charlie last episode, when Charlie said, don't come to the meeting for me, don't do it because of Vault-Tec, but do it for your wife. So again, he's given this listening device, and at first he refuses it. He's like, no, I'm not taking that. And she's like, keep it as a token, i.e., you owe me nothing. But of course, if he doesn't have it, he won't use it. If he has it, there's a chance he will. And I think that's a chance she wants to take, right?
Absolutely, she wants that.
So she's being clever here. But I think that was pretty much it for that meeting. The next scene we go to, after this wraps up, Cooper ends up taking the device and heading out. We see Lucy. So we panned to that lab where the fight was previously at the end of last week's episode. And we're looking over the bodies there in the tubes. And then we see Lucy in a room locked up. And we have the Cyclops overseer and Birdie. What's the overseer's name again? Benjamin?
Yes.
Yep.
Benjamin and Birdie are out there, and they're starting to question her. And because, last episode she had said, you people are insane. And Birdie said, if we go into your vault, we'd probably think you were too. So Lucy is essentially arguing with them. Like, what are you doing to these people? what's going on here. And this is where Birdie says, no, this is your people did. You need to know your history. And she says to Benjamin, you should play the tape. He's going to have to see the tape. And so this is the holotape final log from a group of scientists in this vault. And this is where it connects to what we knew previously, that Vault 4 was run by these scientists. You guys remember the names of the two? I think it was Cassandra and...
It's the Hawthorns, perhaps.
All good. So the Hawthorns ran this. And
Lloyd.
Lloyd and
Cassandra and Lloyd.
Cassandra. There we go. So they were running this vault, and you realize that actually things went wrong while they were still alive, because he starts playing this tape, and Benjamin is having trouble watching it. He's like, I haven't seen this in a while. And you see Lloyd talking to the screen, this may be my final message. I'd be foolish not to think that it was. And he's there with his wife kind of barricading the door. And I still believe that a society run completely by scientists is viable. It is a good idea, but you can see that it's kind of gone wrong on them right now. And
Yeah. And he sort of says, specifically, one of the things that they did that led to this sort of a disaster that's developing in the background, because he still thinks it's a good idea, is they were hybridizing humans with radioactive resistant species.
he still thinks that could work. It was a great idea. It wasn't the science that was wrong. They just didn't expect that the subjects of the experiment would be so difficult to control or contain. But one of those experiments bursts into the room and knocks his wife over and starts eating her while he's kind of screaming and finishing his video, and then attacks him. And you see it's a gulper, like we saw before, like we saw the gulper in the tank, like we saw out there. And so this is where we kind of know the real origin of the gulpers, like we saw at the end of last episode and here, with the fingers in the mouth and how weird fleshy they look and bizarre.
Yeah.
It's because they're kind of like centaur gulpers. You know, they're experimented on breeding radioactive creatures from the wasteland with humans and hybridizing them.
Uncle Peter.
Other side.
Mother's side.
That's where Benjamin's shaking his head. He's all teared up with his one eye. I guess easier to use a hanky.
Which side does a tear come out of if you only have one eye?
Just both. It just drips down his nose. But yeah, he's wiping his tear. And Lucy says, oh my God, monsters. And that's when Birdie starts to explain that they were experimenting on the Vault Dwellers here. People came down that were trapped, were being experimented on in exactly this situation that we saw Lucy and Maximus fall into. That same thing that was used that they fell into, we were worried because it said test subjects at first, and they were helped. Other test subjects in the past had come down and been experimented on. But it seems like that probably only lasted a good 20, 30 years at most, because the original scientists, the Hawthorns, were still there. And this is where Benjamin has said before, he's 5 generations in. So we know it's been about 5 generations of Vault Dwellers here.
Really play it up like she's committed a heinous crime and is going to have to pay for it.
So Birdie says to her that this was your people, this is your history, which is odd. It's essentially, I feel like Birdie still sees herself as separate, even though she and a lot of the surface dwellers here, refugees from Shady Sands, live in this vault now. They still see them as separate from Vault Tech people. And Lucy is one of them. But do you think the rest of the surfies, I'm sorry, we shouldn't call them that. But do you think the rest of the surface dwellers kind of have a bit of prejudice against the original Vault Dwellers here too, or just compassion?
Oh,
No, they seem
everybody
pretty
hates
cult-like.
everybody. Come on.
Yeah, they
Their
seem
little
kind of...
chanting thing is kind of creepy.
They've kind of developed their own
Yeah.
hybrid society here, in a way, of surface dwellers and Vault Dwellers. But
And as they're wrapping up, Birdie asked Lucy, so what experiment did they do in your vault? And she's like,
None.
you didn't have any experiments.
Gosh darn democracy.
right, Vault 33, there was no experiment. But leaving that hanging like that, now there's a question in her head. Or I don't think there really is. Do you think Lucy is questioning yet?
No.
No. She just thinks this vault was out of control, that the people in charge went wrong. So anyway, they say that she's going to be sentenced now, that you can't...
Ignorance does not excuse her cruelty, right? Yes.
Right, that she attacked someone in the vault, which we know, the doctor, she threw acid in his face. One of the doctor that was down here. So you have disturbed our peace, you have broken our peace with violence, and you must be sentenced. And so they throw a bag over her head, and they drag her out. And they're dragging her down the hallway, past Maximus, who's still happily munching on his popcorn.
And still watching the waterfall
Right.
on TV.
He's easily entertained. Plus, has he seen that much water in his life that wasn't radioactive?
Probably not.
But I like your note here, Andrew. He said Maximus almost considers not getting up because he's enjoying the popcorn so much.
He like does a double take with the
Yeah.
popcorn. He like looks at his popcorn, looks at her, looks at his popcorn again.
Is it really that bad?
This is pretty good popcorn.
You any more caviar?
Exactly.
I think it's pretty clear. You see his face go from just enjoying himself to a frown again, and he looks very resolved. Then it cuts over to a red rocket. And finally, we see Thaddeus again for the first time in a while. So Thaddeus is kind of coming along, dragging his big old bag. And meanwhile, CX-404 is nipping at the bag, trying to stop him, trying to pull it so that she can get to Wilzig's head. And so causing all kinds of trouble. So not only is Thaddeus slowed by his damaged foot, but he's also being really slowed down by the dog. So he finds this red rocket, leans against a car, and has to stop. And says, there, fine, are you done? 644 is just sniffing around the bag, thinking about trying to get in. And Thaddeus picks up his foot, and he needs to take a look at what's going on down there. But we don't need to. But whether or not we need to, they're going to show us anyway. So he picks up his foot and pulls off the shoe. Did he pull off the sock at this point, too? Or is that just later?
Yeah.
The doctor.
No, it's now.
Yeah,
And it-
because dog meat starts to like nip
Yeah,
at
lick
it
it.
there.
Leave it alone.
It's bacon. Yeah, no, it looks.
Or CX-404, I mean.
We can call him dog meat.
Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, man, the foot just is pretty damaged, but quickly puts the sock back on. And he looks over and he sees an old bin, an old kind of cooler, probably Nuka-Cola cooler by the Red
That was
Rocket.
Nuka-Cola. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And he gets the idea. So he actually gets CX-404, puts her in and closes it, which I was pretty upset with. He's doing this. He does it Maximus, leaves him locked in a thing with no food and water. Now he's leaving 6-4 locked in a bin with no food and water. He treats all of his pets that way.
Yeah.
Well, at least this one had a little window and everything.
Yeah, there was a little window.
I was with it too, but he does, while he's doing that, he's sort of going on this whole rant at CX-404 there. Like, you're selfish, you know that, huh? And whatever, you want to eat what you want to go. So you're saying all these things, but while he's putting her in the thing, he talks about the mission that they're on. And he's saying that the mission is bigger than them. It's bigger than everyone. So he's looking at it as like a wild card, jeopardizing the mission. I'm not saying it excuses it. I agree with you.
No,
I
but
was
it
upset
is.
too, but
Yeah. Well, and he knows that there's no dogs allowed on vertebrates.
I mean, they jump out the window. There are no windows to stick your snout out in the first place. But he also tells Dog Meat, 6-404, that he's going to bring the head back. He's going to get glory. And this is where you get a little bit about Thaddeus. Like, Thaddeus is accusing Dog Meat of being selfish, but he's here thinking about the glory he's going to get when he goes back to Brotherhood. Now, I'm not sure if he's trying to convince himself of that, or like if that's just like his mantra to kind of give him strength to go on right now after abandoning
Well, what-
Maximus and hurting his foot.
Didn't he?
What they say is when you point your finger at somebody, you're pointing 3 fingers at yourself.
Whew, deep. That's what they
Oh,
say in the
you'd like that.
Brotherhood.
In Thaddeus's rant, didn't he say something along the lines of every time dog meat's around, the head goes missing? So that's why he was putting dog meat away, and he couldn't carry the stuff anymore, right? That's why he stashed the stuff, and he lumped the head in with a scarf and bolted. What was his theory there with locking dog meat away? Because every time dog meat's around, the head goes missing?
Well, I think just that Dog Meat was slowing him down. That Dog Meat wasn't going to make it possible.
yeah,
to
because
deliver
like
the
with that
head.
scene where as they were walking up, Dog Meat was pulling at the bag and all that he was trying to carry in,
Okay.
and was slowing it down. And that's what he calls Dog Meat, is a loose cannon.
And I'm sure they're doing it for comedic effect, but the way he drags that foot, I was
Right.
like, stop doing that. Horrible.
But he locks the dog in. And yeah, there is the air hole, and you hear her whining. And I couldn't help but be worried for her.
And he does go back though too for a little second. He's like, "You can breathe in there, right?" And he lifts up the top again. Just for a second,
See,
he's like, "Okay."
I like that. But, dogs need food, water, and air.
Oh yeah,
Thaddeus.
Walkies, come on.
Oh, yeah, walkies, of course.
yeah. Like he couldn't maybe just, I don't know, put it in the Red Rocket somehow, lock it in there at least, not inside of a machine.
I did find it a little bit iconic, though. The idea that 644 will be discovered
Oh.
at the Red Rocket in a little bit.
Oh yeah, okay,
Dude.
yeah, that's good. Meanwhile, that Red Rocket looked great. I know we've talked about a lot of these things, but
Yeah.
Really look good.
Even
So,
down to the roofing trim that's, half fallen off, and just like the one outside Sanctuary.
So we cut back from the Red Rocket into the vault.
Well, and
And-
he holds up his radio. And he says, "I got to find a radio tower." And he pulls up that
Hmm.
weird little old radio, and he starts. It's a weird looking radio too, right?
Yeah, is that the same device? Is that the same device that he was using to track radiation, or was that separate?
No, that was separate. The thing
Yeah, that was separate.
for radiation was more like a gun.
Yep, and this one looked more like a pip pad, or the Attaboy they're going to have in Fallout London. Where it's kind of more like an iPad. So he's trying to tune.
You got to fill all those pockets in that giant golf bag. So you don't want to have a device do two things.
Exactly. It's kind of like a Batman's utility belt, but it's an entire golf bag. So ridiculous. So we cut back to the Vault 4 and Lucy, and it's a pretty scary scene. People are chanting. They're in the bleachers. I mean, it looks like a school assembly. Okay. Low bleachers, kind of school auditorium gymnasium feel. But Lucy is strapped down to what would be the horse. And Birdie is giving a bit of a speech. Was it Birdie giving the speech, or is it Benjamin?
That was Birdie.
And she's talking about how we came to this vault and we have found safety and everyone deserves peace unless
you break that. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is what Lucy has done, bringing violence to their vault. And this is where Benjamin steps up. And he's got a big ass cutlass. Like full on, hello, I'm playing pirates cutlass. And
Yeah, it looked very ceremonial, very shiny, very ornate, very big and scary looking.
I wonder how many times they've had this ceremony where they banish.
well, and that's just it. He says, for breaking the peace, you are sentenced to death. And that hangs. And she's scared and flinching. And he says, by banishment to the surface. And brings the sword down and starts sawing at the leather thongs that have her tied down.
Comically.
He's like, so you're just letting me go?
It's hilarious. He's sawing and he's like, we got to sharpen this thing. It takes a while. It's comically long.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's still and quiet. It's just him.
And she's like, oh, Lucy, you can tell she's shocked by this. But I mean, thank God, right? Because she was only going to stay for a couple days and go to the surface anyway. The plan, of course, of the Vault 4 dwellers, as Maximus suspected, was to convince them to stay. You know what I mean? That's how they feel Vault 4 is a place of safety. They want to bring people in and show them safety. They probably want the biodiversity of more people coming in and becoming part of their Vault family. But in this case, no, they were letting them go. So yeah, Lucy's like, oh, that's good. That's nice of. And she's like,
and then, they're not animals. They're going to give her 2 weeks worth of supplies.
right.
I forgot
She's
about that.
So you're just letting me go to the surface? And Benjamin says, where you will surely die
Yeah, he's
shortly
like,
after going out.
He's like, that's
Who
certainly
knows
an
the horrible
optimistic
things?
perspective.
Yeah, which is why we're giving you 2 weeks of supplies. Show this beautiful showcase from Vault-Tec. And anyway, they bring out an entire little crate of food. You got all the goodies.
Those Vault-Tec crates are actually really kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I want one of those.
Made me wonder what her carry weight is. Where's she going to put all that stuff?
In her
Well.
golf bag, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Her little backpacks that can fit everything.
And then just in the nick of time, you see a guard fly through the air.
Right, because the power goes out just as, well, she's actually making a quick plea. Like, my friend really likes it here. Okay, banish me,
Yeah.
but let him stay. Boom, power out. And then Ray.
In comes tromping Knight Titus in his power armor, and guards are flying everywhere. And then, for good measure, he goes over and picks up the Nuka-Cola machine and hurls it at a table. And
He's making a point. He flips over the table popcorn. Like, it's hilarious. It's almost like a child throwing a fit. The one security guard he throws into a tree almost. It's a fake Vault-Tec tree, but it's a little tree in there. This cartoon just flips it. Literally flipping a table. It cracked me up. This.
Ruined their dominoes game. Ugh.
Yeah, take that, popcorn.
Did you notice when you just mentioned they threw the Nuka-Cola machine and when it crashed into the snack table? Did you notice the array of snacks on the floor?
Yeah,
It was
fancy lad
beautiful. It was like
snack
once
cakes
of
and-
everything I paused it. I was like, oh, look at that. It's the Blamco and the fancy lads and yada yada. It was really cool.
This is a really well supplied vault. Like, I don't blame Max for giving in to their temptation. They're
It
basically,
was really good.
yeah, they're like sirens. They're luring everybody in with all this delicious snack.
Waterfalls. Have you seen their waterfalls?
Yeah, and outside they're eating ass jerky and cooked rad roach. Oh man, I love it. So Lucy runs up to Titus and wait, stop, wait. They're letting me go. Titus stops.
Oh,
Oh, really?
sorry.
Yeah. My bad.
Somebody needs to check on that guy.
Oh,
Like, so that go over there. So
It-
good.
I love it. Goes right from that scene to him apologizing to you. They're both in the elevator going to
Elephant.
surface. They didn't let her friend stay. I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't think it was an option after.
This has been such a meme, by the way. That elevator picture has been memed a lot already. Just the way they're looking at the camera. So they're out
Smell good.
on the surface, and Lucy says, wait, we stole their fusion core. Maximus stops. What? But I need it. And she goes on to say, their backup power will only last a couple days. They brought us in. They tried to help us, and we were paying them by stealing from them. What are they going to do then? And Max, of course, this is boggling him because he's starting to see what she's saying. And he's like, but I need it. He doesn't think much further than a step or two ahead. I need it for the armor. She's like, but they won't survive. But I'm a knight. I help people. I want to help people. I can help people with this armor.
He says, I can't be a knight without the power arm.
Mhm.
And then she's like, well, you can't be a knight by stealing from people either.
Very good point. This is an entire community of people. If they don't find another fusion core, then they will. Some of them will have to come to surface. They'll have to open up to the outside. I mean, it could cause all kinds of trouble. Probably their foragers on the surface may be able to barter or find another way. Like there may be a way around this, but we don't know.
I forget. Last episode, did they say when she caught him, like looking at the fusion core, that they only had one and that was the only one that was on premises?
That didn't come up specifically, but she said, I see you found our fusion core. So the way she said that in the singular.
Just the one, you
Mhm.
think? Because I was thinking
probably.
they can probably just go over to the utility closet and pop another one in. I bet you they have like 400 of them.
So you would think they would have extra, but it didn't sound like it from the way they were talking. And we know it's been a long time now. We're 220 years after the war.
Yeah, I see them being rare on the surface, but I see a vault being fully stocked.
Yeah.
full, you know?
It's also funny that a fusion core that can power a vault for 200 years is also going to power just a Mr. Handy for.
There's a matter of
200
scale
years.
here. Yeah,
Yeah,
they got
right.
one from Snip Snip. And yeah, armor, handy, or an entire vault. It is kind of matter of scale. So they probably would have more, despite what the show's saying.
Well, if they just have another
Yes.
robot in there, they could go take it out of that
Yeah.
robot. Like if there's a Mr. Handy.
Oh no, the robot still has power, but everyone else is power.
But then we wouldn't have the moral dilemma.
Right. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. The show needs a moral dilemma right now. And
We need the story methods. I forgot.
Lucy stands on her principles, okay? Because she has principles. And where does she get them from? Her dad. And she said, my dad wouldn't approve of destroying an entire community in order to save him. Max says, we need it to save your dad. Don't you care about that? And no, she says, my dad would not approve of that. And
Yeah,
so
she says it would break his heart.
Max exits the armor, and we see them turning the knob, pulling a fusion core, and gives her the fusion core. And so they're walking back around the building, back around to where Hawthorne Labs is, because they came out via the official vault exit entrance here, the big concrete thing labeled Vault 4, like we were talking about, that you said you saw in the distance last episode, Will.
Yes, and I will make a slight correction. I did, but I compared it to, from what I saw in the distance, I thought it looked just like that extra large, the shelter entrance in for 76. But now seeing it in this episode, the way it actually looks, while it has a similar shape, it doesn't look just like it has more of the oval shape, like with the door rather than just a circle and stuff like that. So not exactly like it, but
No, but it's similar. It's similar, and from a distance for sure. And so they hike back over to the Hawthorne Labs building. You don't see them do this, but what you do see is a cut to a woman kind of polishing the floor in a hallway, cleaning things up, and there's a chute by her, the chute where people must have come in before when they got captured, and clang, clang, clang down because the fuse cord into the room. And then it cuts to Max looking through that door, the trap door, but without actually going in this time. And she yells up, "Thank you."
I love that. I got a really good chuckle out of that for some reason. I don't know why. The captions was like, "Janitor says thank you." I was like,
I thought it was really sweet. This is a moment where you see Max actually do the right thing. Not what he thinks is probably the right thing, but actually doing the right thing with Lucy as his conscience.
bent his goddamn arm to get him to do the right
Yeah,
thing.
he's
Still a
reluctant
fucking schmuck. Yeah.
for everything. He comes around, but he's always reluctant. He has to have that bad thought first. Like
I'm
He
reluctant
doesn't know.
to give him the benefit of the doubt. Fuck this guy.
So he there though, he's very happy about this. Like you look and you see him smile. Like Maximus is actually smiling and turns to Lucy and walking by and they're heading out and he looks happy, which I just really liked. The fact that he went from being stressed and I can't give up my armor to doing this. And you see, he's like, I did the right thing. I feel good. I'm making a good choice. So I feel like, yeah, Lucy had to bend his arm, but he is learning little by little. He's learning from her what the right thing actually is and not his brotherhood and wasteland survival instincts that he's learned growing up.
I do also want to take a second and applaud Vault-Tec for designing a nuclear device that you can throw down a laundry chute and it can clang on the floor and not explode. Nice job, Vault-Tec.
Or shower the place with radiation.
Fusion cores are pretty durable. Yeah, you got that heavy duty Melmanet coating. And actually, do any of you actually have one of those fake fusion cores that they sell?
No, and I bet you Robco makes them, not Vault-Tec, right?
You're right. Yeah, it's probably another company. General Atomics, maybe.
General Atomics totally makes them. You're right. I was wrong about Robco. They make, yeah.
Do you think they have a rubber coating on the outside, like steel and rubber?
The lead lining. That's all it is.
I was actually thinking when it clanged down, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that didn't blow up. So I'm totally with you.
Never crossed my mind. Smart.
In the game, we can toss them and such, and they don't either. It is funny how that works.
Have you tried to throw them? I don't know if I've ever tried that.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely picked them up and dropped them.
Oh, I meant like chuck them like a grenade. You can't treat them like a weapon, right?
No, you can't. You can't. But you can throw them. You know how when you're picking something up to move and you move too fast and it goes, whee!
Yeah, but with the right perks, you can also eject them from your power armor and as a grenade.
Did they blow up?
Does that just drop it at your heels, or like, what does it go shoot off far behind you? Or...
I think it goes far enough away that it doesn't kill you.
Well, it probably wouldn't kill you if you're still in the armor, right? Or does your armor open when you eject it?
Yeah, I think in Fallout 4 it automatically opens if the core ejects.
This is that conversation we had.
I actually have a topic of conversation. As I mentioned, I've watched as many videos as I've played. And one of them was like this really awesome beginner run where here's a boat at the bottom of the lake. You get the crate there. You go up and you get a fat boy. You find this power armor that's sitting there. So I got my fusion core, got in my power armor, was cruising around. I was like, all right, now I can take on the first town, basically Concord. I was like, I'm not scared of Concord anymore. And then I popped out of it. I took the fusion core because I heard don't leave your fusion core in your armor because somebody might take it. And go and fart around for a little bit, come back to my power armor. My power armor was looted. I got back in my power armor. I was like, didn't this have a helmet before? Why is my head exposed?
Oh, no.
Like, oh, you can't just leave power armor sitting around. Good to know. I'll keep that in my...
I don't know if I've ever noticed that. Have you ever had your power armor looted, Will? Have you seen that happen before?
Not necessarily pieces like that, but I know like I've had people in like a settlement and stuff just sort of like come take your power armor and get in it.
And not give it back.
Travis gets in my power armor sometimes.
Yeah, and I think I heard if you have the pickpocket perk, you can steal the fusion core. and actually, that's one way to get power armor in 4 is to pickpocket people in power armor and then steal it from them, or kill them and then steal their power armor. Exactly, they exit because when you take the fusion core, it opens up.
Yeah, because I know like when I'm building settlements and all that stuff there in where is it? Sanctuary. I know I'm always putting them like I'm way up on top of the buildings and stuff where none of the other settlers can get to it.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
because I end up, I don't know how everyone else plays. I always end up with a large collection of them. I like to like collect them all and put them out on
Cool.
display and all that.
That is classic. You make your power armor display area. Never leave the fusion core in them if you can help it.
That's what I've heard.
The roof of the Red Rocket is good for that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to walk up to that and see him displayed. Yeah.
The roof of the Red Rocket where Ray lives alone.
Even recruits the dog and then tells him to go away.
Sanctuary. Send him to Sanctuary. There's a doghouse there.
To eat, you'll be fine.
I mean, it is better than locking him in a nuka cooler. So, good job, Ray. Since you're newer to Fallout 4, I have to ask Steven, have you lost dog meat yet?
I've not lost dog meat. No, he's been my faithful companion so far. So
He's the best. He does this thing, though, when you dismiss him. But he'll just go to a doghouse, any doghouse, and hang out. So there are multiple in Sanctuary. So if you're dismissing him, he goes back to Sanctuary. You got to go hunting and check every doghouse until you find
interesting.
him. Mm-hmm.
Good to know. So that's like an action you give him. Hey, you dismiss him.
Yep.
Or is that different because you're like decoupling a companion?
It's exactly like any other companion, yeah. Because in the vanilla
it's all
game,
the same mechanic.
yep,
Is
he
it?
counts
Okay.
as a companion in the vanilla game.
Sorry, I was going to say you can just sort of accidentally lose him along the way too. That's
Yeah.
been known to happen.
Yeah.
So the game has told me to give him a stim pack because he got damaged.
right.
Will he die if you don't treat him?
No.
Not
He'll
in Fallout 4.
he'll eventually
You can
come back out.
Until
continue with your adventure and he will catch up later. You're
He will
fine.
pop up. He'll be pretty pissed, though. Okay. So don't leave him in a state of too much pain
Are
for
you-
too long.
are you reading into how he's feeling, Jess?
Yes.
Or does he have the expression on his face?
On account of the whimpers. I'm
Oh, the
reading until the
whimpers.
whimpering.
The
Yeah.
whimpers. Yeah,
I feel so
that's legit.
bad.
Dog meat thing, Steven, when I first started playing, was I kept trying to feed him dog food.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then it dawned on me, oh, it's not for the dog. One of the first
Yeah.
lessons of like the tone of Fallout. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm eating dog food here. Okay.
Mhm.
This is the good
Oh,
stuff. It's got
yeah.
gravy.
So dog meat does not play well with stairs.
No.
He-
But he does play well with teddy bears, and it's adorable.
yeah, I could a lot of times if I have to climb up a lot of things, like several floors, and it's just like, all right, dog meat, stay, wait right here, and then I'll go do what I
I'll
got to
be
do, and then
back.
come back and retrieve him. Yeah,
Does he fall off and then you won't be able to find him for a while, or what happens?
sometimes that's what happens. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
Like you go and you go about, and if you're not paying attention, he falls off, and you're like, oh, where did he go? I don't know.
Gotcha.
I,
You
you know,
hear a
not
faint
sure when he
whimper.
falls out. Yeah, or you might get the little notification up there. Dog meat has headed back to Red Rocket or
Interesting.
Sanctuary or something.
If you're playing in survival mode, that'll happen with your companions when they get downed.
Yeah.
They actually do get pissed and go back to their home base.
Oh, okay. See, so
Gotcha.
I play in survival mode.
Yeah, in survival mode, you
I
have
know.
to stim pack them, or they do leave. But
Too
yeah,
Cool. So
if-
leave,
survival mode,
but
you're cool.
leave and not be your companion anymore, but not die. Like you can.
No,
You can
none of the companions can die, right?
Right.
What is there? 13 original, 18 with DLCs or whatever.
The official companion. They are considered essential, which is good.
11.
But speaking of cute furry creatures in the wasteland, Lucy is looking at Max and she says, "Oh, you've given up so much." Because she recognizes that this was a big sacrifice for him. I get what you guys are saying, but in her mind, Max has grown, learned a lesson, and she pulled him out of this vault too, in order to save her. Like Max gave up caviar and hot water,
Oysters.
hot shot
Oysters.
oysters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Popcorn and
So-
waterfalls.
And she says, "My vault doesn't have oysters, but they do have canned tuna."
I think you'd like canned tuna.
And he goes, "Rrr."
Do they
Yeah.
have slippers?
Yeah, and also to your point that we're saying like he has been reluctant to do the right thing. She does talk about in this saying that about how every single stranger she basically has met, it's been a bad experience, and she's the first stranger that was a positive experience. So in her sort of like scale of good to bad from anything she's seen on the surface is like he's awesome.
Yeah, to get a little deeper into that, she says, "I think you're a good person," or as Andrew put in his notes, Lucy is fooled into thinking Titus is a good person.
I may put a little twist on that. Come on.
And this is where Max looks at her. She's saying, "You could come to the vault. You could live in my vault with me." And you get the intention here. She's like, look, I like you. She actually also tells him that she was supposed to marry someone from the vault, and that went horribly wrong. You're the best person I met out here. And so the smile that he had goes into the frown again while he's wrestling with his inner demons like he does. Eventually, things come together, and he decides he has to tell her. And that's when he says, my name isn't Titus, it's Maximus. The armor I have belonged to Knight Titus. He's the person who had the armor before I did. He says he was threatening me, and I let him die and took the armor. Will, is there anything else to that you were going to mention?
No, you basically said it right. Like, that's it.
Okay. And he's essentially saying, I'm not a good person. I did this. I let someone die and took their armor. Yeah, they were threatening him. Yeah, he feared for his life. But he is living with his guilt. That's the guilt that Birdie saw in him last episode. It's the guilt that I think is compounded by many things he had to do in his life to survive. And one of the reasons why he is so gun shy and so pained most of the time. And she just looks at him and she says, okay, Maximus, I threw acid in an innocent man's face. I've only been out here for 2 weeks. You know, I can't imagine what you've had to do to survive all this time. You grew up out here. And so she totally accepts it. She accepts the name, and she accepts that kind of her feelings for him. And she says, yeah, come live with me. Let's go find that head.
The wasteland sucks.
The wasteland sucks.
And he's like, yeah, sometimes.
She ain't wrong.
And at this point, in my second watching,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon threw in an advertisement. I don't know if that happened to any of you, but on the first watch, there weren't any ads, but now
Yeah.
it's doing
What?
commercial breaks.
So originally they were all at the beginning of each episode. You know, one of them was this episode's being brought to you commercial free by Samsung. But now, yeah, they do the regular Amazon ad insert to all the episodes.
Have you had ads, Andrew?
Yep, totally. I didn't recall that they switched from the beginning to the middle, though. I thought they were always mixed in.
You said you hadn't until now, Stephen, in this one?
Yeah, I mean, we pay for Prime. I don't
Mhm.
know if that makes a difference or not.
No,
So
we all do.
You have to pay the extra.
Year ago or something?
The ads just started earlier this year. The ads started, I think, so that's kind of a new
okay.
thing. I don't pay
Yeah.
to have no ads, but I haven't gotten ads. I watch on Xbox.
Hmm.
Where are you guys watching?
Interesting.
Roku TV.
Yeah,
Oh,
Roku.
you didn't switch over, Andrew? We had talked about maybe trying it on the Xbox.
I hardwired my TV and it's a little better, but it's still, I don't, yeah, maybe I should try the Xbox just
Yeah.
because it's very slow and clunky on the Roku TV for me.
And I
Yeah,
watched
which-
through an Apple TV.
And you, El?
Oh, yeah. I'm watching, usually on my PC, I have watched it on my PlayStation, but I watch enough Prime content that I pay for the ad-free.
I
like,
might have
$6 or
too.
whatever.
I'm a sucker. So it's possible that I'm watching a lot of this show. So I actually don't know. God, so millennial of me. Anyway, no, your
You need that
subscriptions.
app that tells you how many subscriptions you have.
Exactly what I was thinking of, Stephen. Oh my goodness. So let's see what happens here. So as he walks along, we cut back to Thaddeus. He's walking along, limping along, but just ahead now, not quite as much of a burden. And he is saying that he needs to find radio. Well, he's tuning in on his radio device and he's listening to KPSS, all this fiddle music. And the DJ is talking up a storm, but he says no visitors to the station. Remember, folks, you can contact us, but postcards only, no visitors at the station.
All complaints via postcard only.
Yeah. Also,
I kept waiting for the Minuteman announcer to come on and say that everything was okay in the Commonwealth.
well, and that's what I was about to say almost, right? Is when you pause it for the Amazon, they do the X-ray, they'll tell you what the music is playing and who the actors are on the scene. It actually says Minutemen Radio for that, and then it says Heather MacArthur, like in parentheses.
So the fiddle music we're hearing is actually from Minuteman Radio.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
you could if you've ever taken the castle.
I knew it sounded like
you-
it.
I mean, that is like an instant memory when you hear that music.
Well, they are lampshading people's annoyance with that pretty hard as the episode goes on then. That's awesome. You can tell Thaddeus is getting the idea that he needs to follow the source of this radio, and this will be a way for him to contact the Brotherhood. So you get it cut to a wider shot, and then you see a guy. Oh, wait, it's the chicken curious doctor there. And he's got a big old bong in his mouth, but wait, no, it zooms down. It's not. It's the pipe from a pipe rifle, and going down, and he's sticking his toe.
He's trying to
And the
figure out how
trigger.
to get his toe into the trigger hole.
Yeah, he's going to off himself right here with this giant pipe rifle.
Is
And
that is that his pattern? He just contemplates killing himself until a potential customer comes by, and he's like, "Oh, never mind. Suicide isn't the answer."
Yeah, I feel like he's probably in a vicious cycle like that. He doesn't have a good life. No one wants his foot medicine. Well, no one did. But no, because it is funny because we see him a couple times trying to peddle his wares, trying to make a buck, playing with chickens.
Loving chickens, yeah.
Yeah, you do wonder if it's just his life has gotten to this point where it's that bad, or if this is something he's done before, because he doesn't seem like he's been especially successful. And yet, you do see him outside Philly, and he is trying to sell stuff and trying to make a buck. So maybe he's just at the lowest of the low. But he very quickly, when he sees prospective customers, like, reason to live.
Yeah, that I also found that crazy that he was like trying to kill himself. He has nothing to live for. Oh wait, stranger on the horizon, something to go abuse.
Exploit. Yeah.
He's just like, yay. That was a quick turnaround.
Think
I thought
that-
he was going to ask him, "Hey, could you shoot me, please?" I thought that's what this scene was going to be.
Yeah, he saw a potential customer and was going to take advantage of that. So maybe he was simply just poor and starving and, like a lot of people in the wasteland, kind of dealing with despair. So that's a very bleak moment, really.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
sees Thaddeus and goes running after him.
And then when he catches up with him, so the next scene, he's like, "Wait, don't kill me. I'm a doctor. I can help you." But then, so he's leading him back to his house, and the doctor, it's not very often I see someone traveling with a human head like that. And Thaddeus is trying to play it off. He's like, "Oh, it's nothing.
Oh,
It's a souvenir thing."
The customer is always right. And this guy's about to buy some snake oil from him. So, hey, if he wants to treat his pet head too, he can. People have pet rocks. So he says, "Welcome to my pharmacy." And they go in through the window of the pharmacy. Now, was this the same building as before with Roger the Ghoul? Same pharmacy? The
I
West
think
Side Clinic
it's-
there?
It seemed like it. He goes through the back window, so it's hard to tell. You can't see the front.
Wait, you're saying this is the same building that Roger was in
Yes.
Yeah.
at the ass jerky scene.
It
Yeah,
looks
so
It
it's
at
like
either
least
the
looks.
s- It's either the same building or it's the same set.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's probably the same set, but once they're in there, the way you see the walls and the cupboard there with the chems, it does seem like it is the same building.
He was there for the chems.
So Roger was ransacking the stash.
Looking for more of the anti-feral chem or what he needed to make it if he knows how. Which I don't think that they necessarily know how, but it's hard to tell. He went through a number of vials. We still, that whole chem is still a mystery to us. We don't know much
We don't
about
know
it.
what it's called or anything, right?
No. It's even, okay, quick aside. Sorry, Fallout lore section here. So the new 76 expansion just released today. They have electric ghouls in it. Exciting. But another announcement that came along with that, we'll get into that on the real show. But they did announce that in 2025 in Fallout 76, you're going to be able to play as a ghoul. Okay, which is really cool. It's a new class. We'll talk about it on the show. But people actually asked Jonathan Rush, who is the lead producer right now on this, and said, "Are we going to need this new chem? If we're playing as ghouls, are we going to need something to thwart off going feral?" And to which he said, "We'll see." So now I'm wondering, are they going to incorporate this into the actual game or not?
Yeah, well, that I didn't think about it being in 76. I don't know why, but when they sort of introduced this mechanic in the show, and as we keep saying, this show is canon, I was wondering that, oh, maybe we'll get to be a ghoul in Fallout 5, and this will be part of a mechanic of playing that.
And we're about to get to the point where it gets really real. Not just keeping a ghoul from turning into a feral.
Right, but turning into a ghoul in the first place. Anyway, on the idea of that, I mean, I hate it. We talked about it before on the episode with the serum. I like the idea of it being a local concoction, a local discovery, that there is a way that when you're a ghoul that starts going feral, we're in the future here, past even the last game, we're past Fallout 4 by 9 years, that they have discovered a chem that can keep a ghoul going feral from going feral as quickly. But I don't like the idea of that a ghoul needs to take it their entire existence to not go feral. You know what I mean? Because that would just,
Yeah.
that does feel more like a retcon. Whereas previously it was just like you were fine until you went feral. I don't know, but I don't like it. So Thaddeus is in the clinic, and the doctor is messing around with his chems on the wall. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Eye of Newt, bit of mugwort, whatever he's doing. And as he starts to go through, you see Thaddeus pull out his gun. And he's like, what if I just take it? What if I just kill you here and take it? Which Thaddeus, Maximus, you get the idea that this is not them. Their brotherhood training and stuff like that, they're taught to be a little more ruthless than they actually are. But Thaddeus is doing the whole bravado thing. And the doctor is nonplussed, but he turns around and he's wise to this. He's not surprised. Been in the wasteland for a while. And he comes up and says, well, then, how would you know which is which? I love the line, too. The whole, do you have written down, Will, like the tincture of green? And
Of course. Well, I don't know if I have it word for word, but okay.
Like you had to ask.
When it comes to serums, not many people know the difference between the noxious and the benign. A murky hue of green could aid the humors, a brackish hint of shamrock, and that is the sound of your lower intestine falling right the fuck out. There you go.
that noise he
Great
makes
line.
there, so gross.
Great line.
Sound of your lower intestine falling out. I love it. Yeah, that's a great line. And the idea of
Are all the medicines based on color then? Like, is it just different shades of?
Yeah. Well, I guess he was just pointing out that like there are some that are so close to one another that you could easily make a mistake, right?
But then again, with this doctor, as much as he does seem to have some knowledge here about various chems, I don't think he's got his education in an accredited institute.
Dr. Nick's upstairs medical school.
The Thadster gets the picture.
Yeah, Thadster gets the picture for sure. Thaddy Daddy. So, by the way, do you guys hear that? Some of the girls calling him Thaddy Daddy now?
Oh,
They got a
is
thing
that-
for the boy.
Grown on me quite a lot as a character. When we first meet him in the Brotherhood and he's sort of beating up on Maximus and all that stuff, he's like annoying, I guess. But I really turned on him. Like I like him.
I liked him with Maximus, with the whole Thaddeus
Well,
thing
that's
when
the
they were
best, yeah.
bros. I really feel like they play well together. But here,
his humor style is so perfect for this.
and so the doctor, do we have a name for him? We just calling him the snake oil salesman still?
that's what the credits say when you pause the TV. That's what they credit the character as.
So he says, well, there's still the matter of payment. The idea that Thaddeus goes so quickly from having a gun, reaches into his chest and pulls the fusion core out of his shirt. How about this?
Yeah.
And the salesman's eyes go wide because it's a fusion core. And as has been established earlier this episode, fusion cores are pretty rare in the wasteland at this point, or at least somewhat.
And how many have we hoarded in Fallout 4? So we've taken them out of every generator, off every shelf.
Yep.
I mean, these poor people got nothing left to pick
They're
over.
rare because the Vault Dwellers hoarding them, exactly. And we can build rechargers now. Like there are several devices to recharge fusion cores, but we're not manufacturing new ones.
Scavers have got them all.
So he basically says, "Will this cover it?" And the doctor thinks that'll do nicely. So then he
Why? So he's found his joie de vivre again. You know what I mean? Like he's back into excited about life because there's a fusion core involved.
I
Someone
see
just deployed in a fusion core, and this guy's ready. He's good to go.
many chicken nuggets in his future for sure. Absolutely.
Give me a
what we're
hint.
calling it now.
Oh goodness. So chicken tenders, I suppose.
Oh,
But,
there you go. Yeah, that's really good.
So he talks up the medicine and he gives it to him and says, "Warning, tastes very bad, or this may taste very bad." So he takes it, nasty as heck, but very effective. And you look down and the foot that was completely mangled, toes drooping, bone coming out a little bit, starts to heal. Heals right up. Good as new.
Toe held on by two tendons, just flopping in the wind.
Yeah, so he's good to go.
And of course, the doctor wants to get out of there before too long. And which at the time made me wonder, wait, is he kind of ripping him off? We don't really know. But we do know the doctor wants to get out of there like, hey, okay, good day, enjoy.
Yeah,
Packing
he's
up his
packing
tackle
up.
box and heading out. I'm sure he wants to sell that fusion core quickly and have steak tonight or what have you.
Yeah, but Thaddeus asks him if there's a radio tower anywhere.
Hmm.
And then that's when the doctor, he mentions, oh, well, over yon way or something like that,
Yeah.
past the hole and, near this place called Shady Sands. Right. And so Thaddeus is like, oh, that place is radioactive as hell. And that's when the doctor says, well, buddy boy, that's not something you need to worry about anymore, is it? And then he just darts out through the window.
So we're like, wait, will the healing
I was kinda-
continue?
I was kind of puzzled by that. Did look at him like, wait, what?
I felt like he was suddenly Job from Arrested Development and said in his mind, I've made a huge mistake.
Made a huge mistake.
Yeah, in the back of his head. But I don't think he does it yet because the pain went away. His foot is better. And watching it, I just thought, well, maybe the healing will last for a while, and so he'll be okay.
Yeah, but he thinks he's home free now.
So we switch back over to the vault, and What a Difference a Day Makes is playing again. Which is this our first vault scene this episode in Vault 33? I think it is, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
And it's funny because we left off with it playing What a Difference a Day Makes before too when they were looking at Vault 32. So it's kind of continuing. And you see Norm feed the prisoners, and they're greedily and happily taking the food this time. Putting it into the slot. Because before they were refusing the food, they were standing their ground. But Lucy said she's been gone for 2 weeks in the vault there.
Yeah.
So the Raiders are getting used to life in a vault and eating this kind of prison food. And then Norm's taking out, and do you think it's the next day? Sorry to jump here, but he's essentially feeding them, taking all the food. And then you see him walking in through the hallway. So I don't know if he's just going around the corner to another area with the prisoners or if this is the next day.
Yeah. It's hard to tell.
It's a little confusing. It hadn't even occurred to me that it might be the next day. But yeah, I was definitely wondering, like, so did these people that are all of a sudden sick?
He's bringing them more food. Yeah, he's going around the corner to the hall and bringing them more food. But did he just give them food? I was very confused.
Yeah, maybe that's why What a Difference a Day Made was playing on the radio, because they're supposed to, or not on the radio, but as a soundtrack, because that's how we're trying to suggest that another day had passed after he fed them.
Yeah,
and he was feeding them again when he sees it.
I think that's what happened, is that this was his routine. He was daily feeding them. They were eating the food greedily now. They wanted to establish that. And then a day later, which is really just a cut through the swinging doors, boom, 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 he's coming to bring the food the next day. And he's looking over, and everybody in the room is dead. The door is open. There's security there. And as you go into the room, you see that some of the prisoners are face down in their trays of food from either the morning or the day before. And, oh, isn't it a shame? And Norm's like, what happened? And Betty's like, oh, it seems like it was rat poison. Someone gave them rat poison. At this point, I'm wondering if they're going to blame Norm. But they don't. Betty just says,
that's what I was wondering.
We're going to find out who did this. We'll get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, and you see Veronica being pulled off in the background there. She's like, I wouldn't do something like this.
The nice girl. Like they're going to...
That he gave the Jello cake to.
Mm-hmm. But the other people in the council are there with them too. But earlier, also on the loudspeaker, you heard them when you first cut over about your vault assignments will be handed out shortly. And so Norm is starting to question, like, did I give them poison in their food? Am I going to be blamed for this? Betty doesn't insinuate.
He clearly doesn't give off vibes like he was part of it. Even if he was the one that gave them food, he doesn't seem like he was behind it.
Yeah. I didn't know it was...
I would suspect Betty more than I would suspect Norm.
That's just it. Yeah, he was definitely an unwitting dupe if he did give them the poison. But it's interesting because we know he originally wanted to, although I feel like he's lost that fire because as soon as it's happened, we don't really get his opinion on it, but you can tell that he's shocked and maybe a little bit horrified at this point that this happened.
He's more interested in the big picture.
Right. He's thinking big picture. So he's thinking, was it me? Was it Stephanie? Was it Betty? And he's, of course, suspecting some kind of foul play that Betty set up.
Yeah. And she leans into him and sort of whispers, like, that's what I mean, Norman. Your words have consequences.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And the insinuation is that him saying that something should be done to them, that somebody took advantage of that and did
the
that.
idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whereas, of course, we think it was probably actually Betty or on her orders. But meanwhile, she steps out of the room and she's like, you know what would work really well here? Kind of like releasing bad news at 5 o'clock on a Friday. And so she steps out, hits the vault assignment button, and everybody's getting their Pip-Boys lighting up, finding out who's going to Vault 32 and who's staying in Vault 33. And this little montage of the characters we've met so far. We get various people. Let's see, like Reg gets to pop up. He's going to Vault 32. Looks at Woody. Looks unhappy.
Reg is staying in 33. Yeah.
And Woody's the one.
Woody's the one that's going. He's the first one, and because he's like, oh fuck, when he first gets it.
32, and you're seeing but different reaction to people, and then you see various people you're staying in 33. You're going to 32. Stephanie and Chet, you're going to 32.
Yeah. She sort of looked knowing when she saw it. And Davey, like when he got you're going to 32, he gave like the fist pump or something. Yes. He was excited. Yeah.
He's excited, right? It's an adventure. Some people are excited to get to a new vault. Others are reluctant.
Is there a pattern or anything connecting all the people who did get sent?
So I imagine there were political reasons behind some of it, which we're going to find out in just a second. But then you have the whole thing. The loudspeaker says, wherever you end up, that's where you belong. When they actually end up going to the vault later, Eddie gives a speech about how you were chosen for your loyalty, your stick-to-itiveness, and your pioneering spirit, as in there'll be pioneers over there.
Also, when Steph got her little notice, Steph and Chet, like Steph was busy icing down herself there.
She was icing down the sector, for sure.
How recently had she given birth?
Within the last week.
Within the last couple days? Okay.
It might have been a full week at this point, but it's pretty recent for sure. And she moved on Chet pretty fast, as we know. But anyway, I was going to say there are political reasons behind it. So you get Reg and Woody kind of being broken up, like these two council members who are best buds, platonic life mates, and they're getting split up on purpose. Steph and Chet are getting it because Steph's going to be the temporary overseer over there. I mean, I imagine there are reasons for many of them.
Yeah. So Steph was kind of the outlier in Norm's idea that all of the overseers come from Vault 31. And he knew that Steph had come from Vault 31.
But she
wasn't an overseer.
And yet now, yeah. So when that's announced that she'll be the temporary overseer, he looks at Norm and Norm looks at him. But before we get to this scene, we get kind of Norm's reaction as he's getting his assignment and he's going to check on his cousin and one of his closest buds, as you can tell. Not like Norm has a lot of friends, I don't think. He's going to check on Chet, his partner in crime. And he gets down there and Steph opens the door. They've already got their assignments and they're packing up. And Steph says, I'm holding the baby, so Chet, you pack up. But yeah, they're going to 32. She says, I'm going to miss you, Norm. That's what he finds out. Chet comes out to talk to Norm and start to say goodbye. And Norm is asking him, so you're really going through with this? And Chet says, it's time for a fresh start. He's just going to turn a blind eye to everything.
Forget everything that he saw.
Right. Forget everything you saw. And Norm's just like shaking his head. Chet, you're a coward. You know that? And Chet has a really good line there.
Oh, that's perfect. Like we all are. We live in a vault.
We're hiding from the world down here. I thought that was a really good line. And it's one that Norm used earlier about going out there in the first place when he said, I'm too chicken to follow Lucy into the wasteland.
Yeah, I remember making a comment like, oh, they leaned into that way too hard, so Norm's going to be the hero at the end of the story because I'm a coward. Oh, no.
Yeah, for sure. Because he'll find his place. But right here, we cut as the door closes on Norm to the ghoul walking up to the red rocket we saw earlier on approach. And he's still trying to find the head, of course. He's tracking what he had. I imagine he's following a blood trail or just kind of using old-fashioned tracking, but he's trying to follow Thaddeus and the head.
Yeah, I was wondering how he got to the red rocket too. I mean, he obviously sees the blood there when they at the approach to the red rocket, but I wasn't sure if it's more of a coincidence he happened upon red rocket.
He might still be following the logical trail because the area where Thaddeus and Maximus split, I mean, they were on their way to the observatory because they had the coordinates. The ghoul's looking for a clue of some kind while he's kind of working his way towards the observatory somewhere.
Right.
And he hears, well, first he comes up on the car and he sees the blood and he tastes it, which
it's so gross.
I don't know.
What you do?
I guess. Yeah. I mean, he's been around a while. Maybe he can tell the difference in blood flavor.
From Thaddeus's foot.
Yeah.
Foot blood.
Yeah. That head is out of blood by now, right?
It's kind of coagulated and dried, for sure.
Started to dry.
That's when he hears the dog in the cooler. Goes over to investigate, opens the lid, and...
Was it his tail hitting when he smelled the ghoul approaching? Was it the ding, 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 ding? Was it the dog's tail wagging inside the cooler? I thought that was like the sound, because it was sort of like a steady, repetitive sound.
Yeah, he might have been thumping a bit, absolutely. Whether it was trying to get out or wagging his tail, hearing somebody approach. But the dog's making noise, so goes over to check, opens the lid, and boom, it's 6404. The ghoul recognizes him. And he says, come on, bud. What does he say, Will? It's time to find your master.
Yeah, it's just, all right, let's go find your daddy.
Yeah, let's go find your daddy.
Oh, daddy.
I like that. And as he says that, perfect time for a flashback to Cooper. And he's smoking, and he's got Roosevelt in his lap, and he's reading a Tesla magazine. And the thought occurs to him, I've got this device. What if it did sync it to the Pip-Boy? So he wanders over
Yeah, the
to the
Pip-Boy's out on
Pip-Boy.
the counter there. Yeah.
And he puts the tracking device into it and hooks it up like it was explained to him he could do. And you can tell he's kind of reluctant, but it's eating at him what Vault-Tec is up to. And so as he does that and he kind of puts the thing in his ear, right then his wife walks in and they start talking. And she mentions that she made 3 Cocos. He's like, 3? 1 for me? And she's like, yes, 1 for you. And come on, she grabs her Pip-Boy, she puts it on, she goes outside. Meanwhile, he has the earbud in and now he's starting to hear the transmitting. And she's talking to their daughter and they're kind of laughing. And she says, where's daddy? Oh, daddy be right out. And it's just all this sweet stuff. You know what I mean? Like you'd expect. And Roosevelt whines a little on cue. And Cooper says, you're right, boy. And he just kind of pulls the earpiece out and you see him going around the corner to the outdoor trash and he tosses it into the trash. Because he just feels so guilty. Like it's eating at him about Vault-Tec. But he doesn't want to spy on his wife. Totally get. When he goes out there, you assume that they're having cocoa together. And then next scene, you see them, is it later that night, back in the bedroom after that?
Yes. He's watching the Vault-Tec commercial that he filmed.
Right.
Like Barb's asleep and he's just sitting in the chair watching his commercial.
And probably he was watching something else, had it on while he was once again kind of reading, getting ready to fall asleep. And that commercial came on, I'm guessing.
I would think so.
That he was reminded of Vault-Tec either way. And it's eating at him still. As much as he trusts Barb, he feels maybe there's something to what multiple of his friends are saying and what this woman was saying. And so he goes out, he goes digging through the trash, but he's still pissed. No dogs in the vault.
And exactly. Inspired by No Dogs in the Vault. It's a driving
Steven,
force.
If you were told you couldn't have your dog in the vault, would you let that go easily?
Freedom.
Burn that place down.
Exactly. Yeah, I would the same too. No pugs in the vault. They're small, they don't eat that much. Once again, if it wasn't for this stupid rule, none of this might have ever happened. Like if he wasn't told Roosevelt couldn't go with him, he might not have taken this initiative.
Because then after he finds a bug, after going through all that trash or the listening device, he's there. He does have Roosevelt, and he's hugging and sort of like giving him some scratches and all that stuff. So you can tell it's definitely playing into his thoughts.
And it's a nice transition because it goes from him scratching Roosevelt to him sitting by a fire out in the wasteland as a ghoul. And Dogmeat, or CX44, has her head in his lap. And she's whining.
Just like it did in the scene before when he was reading the Tesla magazine.
Very same positioning.
Or Roosevelt, yes.
And whining a little bit. And he kind of looks down and he says, I'm sorry, Dogmeat. He says, I'm sorry, Dogmeat. You ain't him. Despite saying that, he reaches down and starts to scritch his head. So yeah, this is where we get the official kind of Dogmeat christening. Even if the ghoul meant it like just some old mongrel, it's sweet. Good scene. And that one fades. You guys have anything else on this stuff? The flashback scene or the campfire scene or anything here? So we cut over to Thaddeus at the radio station. Great scene again. Because you see is it KPSS?
Yeah.
Just a quick shot, not that it matters, of Lucy and Maximus. They're walking down the trailway too with the radio station, the fiddle music playing, like they're heading that way. And then it switches over to KPSS.
Yeah, they're listening in. So we get the KPSS sign, and it's a very classic mid-century modern sign. And actually, one of the companies in Fallout, or even maybe a couple of companies in the Fallout game, do their letters like that. I think the laundromat
KPSS,
does.
you mean?
Yeah, the style of KPSS with the white letters on top of the slightly nouveau background and different color kind of wedges. Anyway, it's classic Fallout look. And you scan down, and there's Thaddeus listening to music and listening to a DJ kind of talking about the great music. And he says, thank you for letting me use your radio. My friend should be here soon.
Yeah, he says his ride should be there any minute, and just,
hoping his ride is there any minute.
He's enduring the music, but the DJ is going on about how some people just can't appreciate it. And you realize that is kind of a captive audience right there.
Well, it's sort of Thaddeus' fault because he brings it up because there's an awkward silence, and then that nothing's going on, and then that's when Thaddeus is like, "So you were saying earlier that some people don't appreciate this or don't like the sound of this music, really?" And then that's when Fred Armisen is going, "Oh no, not quite at all. fight, they get fully mad.
Yeah, they get fully mad, and
Yeah.
he starts going on about music, and Thaddeus is trying to play along and appreciate it. Oh, with the rant, he's like, "Oh yeah, the lows," and
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, the mids." Which Andrew's favorite line. He's like, "What people don't get," because he's such a Fred Armisen is such a hipster here. He's like, "People don't appreciate. I've got the original records. You know, it's just they're so warm,
These are the original recordings.
right?"
So
And Thaddeus is
Yeah.
doing such a good job of playing along, saying, like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
yeah.
those are the mids. Oh, okay,
He's like, no, right there.
yeah, right there."
Thaddeus was like, "Oh, you can really hear it on there," and he's like, "No,
Yeah.
it's not on there. It's in there."
I'm like, Thaddeus, don't mess up, because I feel like this guy could be a little violent. Because as he's saying this, we're starting to pull back. And now we see he's actually sitting between two skeletons in various states of disarray. And then there are like a bear trap and like a fall trap. And Thaddeus says, nice booby traps.
Yeah, one of them is a like giant man-sized like mouse trap, like a
Trap,
full, like
yeah.
a regular
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
rat
Snap the
trap.
guy's head
Bear
off.
trap that came up on some guy's chest too. That was that big.
Pretty
Crazy.
ridiculous.
And you can also see very classic again, pointing out just the thing that they faithfully recreate from the game is a flamethrower trap in the background too that looks just from Fallout.
Yep. And you see
I
the
didn't
wires
pause
going
this.
around. And the way they've got the electronics set up with the wires and with the connectors, like it is very like a bunch of Fallout traps kind of wired up. And yeah, but there are all these skeletons, and they've been
The
dead for a
sign that
while.
says no requests.
No requests. It's just,
Oh, that is great.
I have to say though, I was also thinking like, obviously it's for effect, but you would think if they were actual booby traps, he would kind of reset them. And
Yeah.
it feels like some of these people stumbled into them a while ago.
Yeah, but it's funny too. That's also when Fred Armisen, DJ Carl, that's his name. I just keep wanting to call him Fred Armisen. That's when he says when he's looking around at all the dead bodies. That's when he's like, critics.
Saying critics are the dead people in the traps, or he's calling Thaddeus a critic.
I was thinking like all the dead people in the traps were critics.
I think maybe he left some of the bodies there as a warning. Like, because he's telling people on the radio, you don't need to visit in person. Send a damn postcard.
Right.
And when they do visit in person,
It's head
come into
on
the booby
pikes,
traps.
right? That's why you don your doorway with heads to warn your foes. Beware.
He's playing this music for the betterment of the wasteland. Okay, they need to know. Minuteman Radio.
This music is so bad, people are willing to die to try to get it off.
Speaking of critics approaching, the DJ Carl says, "Oh, those your friends?" and points. And it's Max and Lucy walking up in the distance, getting closer. And Thaddeus immediately jumps up and pulls out his gun and starts shooting away like he's going to shoot them. And of course, DJ goes, "Guess not." Closes the door, slams down, backs in to be safe. And so Thaddeus expels his entire clip.
Oh my god.
And you're like, "Oh no." And you turn and they're both fine.
Yeah,
Maximus is
But
looking
they're
for
looking at
holes.
each other,
At
looking
each other,
around.
look up, look down, look at each other, look back at him. I'm like, what?
And Thaddeus says that he's crap without a scope.
That was I laughed out loud. Like, oh no.
I know Thaddeus and Max just fought, but like the fact his first instinct is start just completely unloading on these guys. Like, it makes me not want to like Thaddeus. Even though I do like Thaddeus, like you're saying, as a character, is very shoot first.
We can like the job the actor is doing and dislike the character. You know,
Yeah.
you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, but the problem is I kind of want to like Thaddeus too.
I
You
think I
know?
like Thaddeus.
Yeah. He's too reactionary here. But I mean, this guy did just tromp his foot into bones and
Yeah.
splinters. And it appeared like Max was going to kill him for not going along with the story. I mean, they left each other in a pretty bad state.
He didn't stomp on the foot on purpose, though, did he?
No, that was a
No.
total
That was
accident.
accidental,
Yeah.
right?
But and he doesn't know that if Maximus was coming up to kill him, to take the head, you know,
He probably assumed he was. Yeah,
He
he,
maybe
probably assumed
jumped the gun on that. But
Maximus was coming up to steal the head back. But Thaddeus has already called the BOS. So he stands up and he lets them know, you better go. The Brotherhood are coming.
like, Lucy's just like, we just want the head, and then
Right.
and who are you? He's like, oh, I'm the person that cut the head off. You know.
What scares Thaddeus? Is that why Thaddeus
Yeah.
steps backwards?
And so he starts back, exactly. Yeah. So he starts backing up a little bit and sets off a trap.
Whoops.
You see him step on a tripwire, things move. A trunk pops open and a crossbow shoots an arrow right through his neck.
Bolt in the throat.
But he doesn't fall down. He's not dead. Everybody just kind of standing there agape. And Thaddeus starts wheezing when he breathes.
Yeah, he had a whistle.
He's got an obstruction.
They don't know what's happening. Thaddeus goes
Yeah.
to start pulling the arrow out.
Yeah, he's like, why am I not dead?
I would not do that if I were you.
Yeah, Lucy thinks it's a bad idea to pull the arrow out. He's like, what am I going to do? Leave it in there? So he pulls it out. And yes, slowly, gingerly, as soon as it's out, he starts to heal up. And everybody's in shock. Thaddeus isn't dead.
How we know what that weird doctor guy was talking about?
Yeah, because we start to hear the vertebrate noises. And we realize the Brotherhood might be approaching. But as that happens, Maximus says, I think you might be a ghoul.
Ghoul, dude.
Because as we know, at least established in the show, ghouls have pretty radical healing abilities. And they don't normally have that much healing in the games, as far as we know, but they seem to have especially good healing here.
Right.
Now, we
But
don't
he's
know.
also super fresh, like, I guess. So
Yeah.
we don't know.
Yeah, because he hasn't like turned into a ghoul. All
Yeah.
he's doing is his healing. So that's like Maximus's supposition. But Thaddeus hears that and he's, oh no. Because obviously the Brotherhood, as we know, at least this version Brotherhood from Fallout 4, and that's the group coming in here with the California Brotherhood, they hate ghouls. They don't like unnatural things in the wasteland so much. And so he's like, what am I going to do? And Maximus says, give me the head. I'll give it to them. You can get out of here. Like, perfect timing. Thaddeus is like, you do that for me? And he says, I'm sorry. I don't know what Thaddeus says exactly, but essentially he's apologizing for turning on them. And he hopes they're okay. And he's like, I don't have the exact line, but essentially, I didn't mean anything by it. I'm sorry. I hope you're okay. Have a good day. And he just takes off.
Well, Lucy is confused. She's like,
Mhm.
wait, this is good, right? The government or the Brotherhood, it's a good guys, isn't it? So she thinks it's a good thing.
Right.
But
That's
then,
what they're
you
waiting
know,
for.
Yeah, Thaddeus is like, it's a complicated organization. Yeah.
We know as the viewers that they tend to dislike ghouls and other such things. And of course, Maximus and Thaddeus know. But yeah, Lucy doesn't know. Are they the good guys? Not so much in the show right now. Not so much at all. She's just assuming because she thinks Maximus is a good guy. And he never really got into the whole background there with the Brotherhood and everything about them. Thaddeus realizes this must be what the doctor did to me. And he makes the offhand comment, I never should have trusted a doctor that smelled like that. You gotta assume booze and misery is what he smelled like. But yeah, so Thaddeus panics, he runs off, and Lucy's, well, what are we gonna do now? And Max says, you're gonna take this head and you're gonna run. I'll cover for you. Well, they're coming for the head. What should I do? And that's when Max grabs another head. He says, you just take this one. And he takes and he smashes the face. And he says, they want a head, I'll give them one. And then we
The old
have
switcheroo.
a very tender moment where they desperately kiss as they're saying goodbye. And she's like, I'm in Vault 33, come find me. And Max is smiling and gives her a kiss as their little heads they're holding also touch tips. And
DJ Carl is smiling in the background.
he's trying to reassure her. And she is like, come find me. And okay, he's like, you've got to do this. You've got to find your father. This is your way. Because he knows that the Brotherhood will keep that from happening if they take the actual head. So she runs off and he's there waiting for the Brotherhood. But you get this thing where he goes from being reassuring to smiling and brave face for her. Where as soon as she's away, he turns and gets that stern Maximus face. Once again, he knows out of the frying pan into the fire. He's got to deal with what happened to Titus. Why isn't he Thaddeus who called in the head? This is not the actual head. What the heck is he going to do when they find out? Andrew, would you say Maximus did a good thing here of his own will?
By giving her the head and covering.
He's sacrificing himself for her. I would say this is maybe the noblest thing he's done.
Come on, Andrew. Poke holes in it.
The Brotherhood, of course. What will they discover when they get this head? Do they know what they are looking for? Because it's an Enclave scientist guy, but did he intercept the technology and inject it into himself? How did he get that? I forget what happened.
Yeah, we don't know exactly where he got it from, but we assume that they had it in the place he was working. And we
So
know
the
that
Brotherhood doesn't even know what they're looking for, right?
they
No,
may,
just
though.
the person that they're
But
looking for.
they do know that it has the chance to change the shape of humanity, right?
Right.
Like, so they're like exact words. but
His
something
head
along those
could
lines.
really give them a couple of weeks. I don't know, at least at least a buffer of a few days going on with this head. You know what? I don't know. This is the head we found. I think this is the one. I don't know.
Maximus is covering and lying and going to buy time. And yeah, we don't know. They know exactly what they're looking for. We don't know how much they know. They had the picture transmitted of the dog of Wilzig. And they know that they're looking for head. And I think that they are aware that there is a device in there, and they may actually know more about it. When the bounty went out, and once again, we don't even know who sent the bounty in the first place, because we got a couple of bounty hunters heard about the bounty. We got other people looking for the head. We got the Brotherhood got word of this happening. And we still don't even know if the group that Wilzig escaped from was actually Enclave, or if he was an Enclave scientist that was captured by them. They still haven't answered that question yet. Simplest answer is probably true, so we can say, okay, the game is saying they are in the show is saying they are an Enclave base that he ran away from and took technology. But then why would the Enclave not go after himself if they've got people and all these other dogs? Why would they send out a bounty?
Yeah, you're right.
So I find that odd. I still feel that there's more going on there. Anyway, Brotherhood knows some details. So yeah, he'll be able to cover for a while, probably not long. And we are going to find out next episode when they do get the head that they kind of scan it and they can pretty quickly determine that it's not the right one. We don't know that now. All we know is that Maximus sacrificed himself for Lucy and is about to pay the price for his sins.
Before we move on from this scene, I just want to point out that they give a good shot of Lucy's finger. That thing has not changed color at all. It's still corpse-colored finger. Love it. Yeah.
That is the through line to this show. That finger. Ugh, pretty upsetting.
It still bends and stuff, though, right? Or is it like a dead finger? Is it like...
No, she uses it. Yeah.
And then for the final scene, we're back over to the exterior of the vault. And this is where we've already kind of talked about it a bit, where the Overseer is bidding the brave pioneers and our friends are now going to become our neighbors. And so the people from Vault 33 who are now going to Vault 32, heading over there. It's a big departure thing. They're hugged. She's giving a speech. Woody is not having it. Woody he starts to be like, nope, I am not leaving my home. And he turns around, starts walking out and runs right into Vault security.
So he's like, that's not my home. That's my home. Points back at 33.
Exactly. He doesn't want to go. He sees Vault security and everybody's looking at him like, whoa, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. We do know what happened. He's being forced out of his home and away from Reg, and you can't blame him. So anyway, they continue, and the speechifying is done, and they open Vault 32. And this is where it's mentioned that Stephanie will be the temporary overseer. And they start to walk into the vault. All the people who have now been assigned to 32, there are hugs and goodbyes, and Norm kind of watching. And as they're going through and going out, Norm's thinking, this is my opportunity to do something about this, thinking this isn't right, and I need to find out what's going on.
And of course, when Betty announces that Steph is going to be the interim overseer, like that's Norm and Chet give each other that look of like, oh, another 31 resident.
And I feel like
overseer.
Chet hadn't fully bought into it until this point. And I think that's where Chet's like, oh boy, my girlfriend, I mean, maybe he's happy. He's got a status. He's going to be the first, what would you call it? The first dweller? Anyway.
The first cousin.
Yeah.
The first cousin. Oh no.
There are two things that I noticed about that scene. One is that everybody still has a 33 vault suit on. I wonder.
People going to 32 do as well?
Like tailor them to
Do they get
their
new
vault
ones?
number. Huh? And the second thing is like at least a few of the vault dwellers don't have anything in their hands, and they're going to their new home. And I'm like, you probably wanted to have something, didn't you? Want to bring something?
They do this whole scene. I feel like there's got to be multiple trips too, because we only see like maybe 20 going over. And I don't think 20 is enough to reestablish a viable vault, even if there are more people coming from 31 in the future and 33 in the future. So I feel like there's going to be multiple waves and stuff. But this is the big ceremonial resettling scene happening.
Yeah. And we know Chet had to pack everything because.
We're holding the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff over there already too. Like we saw when they were visiting earlier, how everything was kind of resupplied and fresh toast.
In the past, the vaults remain totally separate. Is that the plan in the future, or will they have quick access to each other?
You assume they're going to be locked off again, even though if it takes a little bit at first, they're going to resume the old pattern.
Yeah, because
where
they never
they can-
had much interaction. They
Right.
would go years without.
They can communicate. Like she even mentioned something about, I've talked to the High Council.
Who's that?
When she says the High Council, you got to assume she's talking about people in Vault 31 and their council. So yeah, you're getting hints once again that there's more stuff going on than we've heard about. as Chet's kind of, as the door's closing on him, and he's got the baby, and Steph is there smiling, like, I got what I wanted. You can see Norm going off, and Chet kind of looking at him, runs away.
Yeah. It's very symbolic. Norm didn't even wait around to watch it close with everyone else, but turned his back and he was gone even before.
Well, he was using that opportunity, right, while they were distracted.
Away, yeah.
Yeah.
Betty staying in 33, I
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah.
She's the overseer.
So she just got elected, right?
And she kept Norm where she can keep an eye on him, too, if you think about it.
Right.
But
And
meanwhile,
she put Steph in 32 because Steph is one of her disciples, right?
mhm,
Well,
as far as we know.
we'll find out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Norm walks briskly to the overseer's office and gets on the computer because he's going to get to the bottom of this. And this is where we got our hacking screen, you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
You were just talking about that last week.
I hacked a computer today.
I was gonna say, have you pulled up that game yet, Steven? Yeah. That's a fun one. I like that one.
It's Wordle. Fallout Wordle, we call it. But going through,
Totally
he, ma-
ripped off our game.
he manages to hack it. And so that was good to see. And he gets in there and communicate with Vault 31. So he somehow finds a line. He opens the communication. And
Will, what was the password?
Oh, I didn't write. I don't know. I didn't write it down.
I think they blanked it out.
Will.
I don't think it actually showed us. He went pretty fast. But yeah, so he opens up the line, like it's our classic terminal screen. He opens up the line about communication with Vault 31. And he just types hello and waits. Cursor blinks, comes back. Betty, everything
Betty,
okay?
that you? Hello, Betty.
How are you? And Norm says, I need to return to 31. Because Norm's thinking about what, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too little. And there's a very pregnant pause.
Have
Are you
been
compromised? And Norm sees that, and you can just see in his head right now, he's like, man, I am deep into spy world. So he replies, mission not going as planned. So he's not going to say, yes, I'm compromised, because he's pretty quick. If he says he's compromised, that could actually go too far. So he simply says,
31 immediately.
mission not going to plan. And the overseer of 31 says, I see. Come to 31 immediately. Now, you don't need to tell Norm twice. So Norm walks over 31.
Grab a weapon, anything. He just trots on
Doesn't
over.
seem to.
Yeah. But to answer your question, Andrew, since we don't like to leave any stone unturned here,
Okay, he
the
looked up
password
the password.
was, yes, it was dubbed.
The password is dubbed.
And we established in an earlier episode in the council room that they're in a triangle, right? Like you don't have to go through 32 to get to 31.
Right.
Nope. They seem to have various corridors going there. I almost wonder if it's like a flux capacitor, though. If like they kind of meet near the middle. Probably not, or else they'd run into each other, right? But yeah, there's a big hallway unit. And Norm goes up to the door and he says, hello. And again, and then the door starts moving. And he walks in. And I thought this is where this episode was going to end. You see Norm walking into the darkness in this corridor. I'm like, perfect place to cut.
And then it goes to black.
Mm-hmm. And it does. It goes black. But then it comes back up. And Norm is in a vault hallway, like any other, but kind of flickering a little, kind of empty. And he's walking down, and he turns a corner and another. And then he hears something. And he looks, and there's boxes and crates. And some robotic thing there, kind of just making noise, running into something. And that's where it ends.
I'm singing a little song on its way out.
So, very concerning end. Instead of the cliffhanger of Norm entering the vault, what's he going to find? We actually see Norm find something. I feel like they specifically wanted to make us not just scared for him, but also curious on this one.
We still don't know what's in there because it's actually even more curious now. Yeah,
But that's where it ends, and it goes to the credits. And the credits on this one, the pullback, I think we're seeing a Brotherhood Vertibird, and then we're seeing the telescope inside of an observatory. It's pulling back, and so we're actually seeing the observatory that we'll see next episode that we were told Moldaver was at early on.
I don't know if you guys noticed this, but last episode foreshadowed this episode, and that closing is foreshadowed next episode.
I thought that was interesting
because I don't think they really did that earlier in the season. I rewatched some of those, and I was like, yeah, they don't do that foreshadowing until later in the season.
The first couple specifically, they actually seem to reflect on the ending scene or like what happened to that episode. Like Cooper watching a movie, it pulls back from a 3D movie.
Yeah.
They're finding the Shady Sands ruins, and it pulls back from a ruined city. And so there are these moments, or when they're near the LAX airport, and it pulls back from around there. But last episode and this episode, it is foreshadowing. And it might again in episode 8.
Yeah, I was going to say we won't talk about it yet, but it.
Yeah. And that could be that since we have different directors for these different episodes, that could just be this Guy Toys thing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, absolutely. That the directors are choosing what they want to highlight, or the people they had working on it made a certain number of scenes, and it made sense for some to go back and some to go forward.
I remember having the grandiose realization when the Game of Thrones intro was telling you what stories were going to be mentioned in this week's episode by the introduction, I don't know, theme music.
But I go back and I watch old shows sometimes on Prime, whatever. I'm like, don't spoil the next episode. Like, you get the last 30 seconds being like, next week on, you get this and this and this. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm about to watch it. I don't need a tease. Just let me skip.
Previously on Lost.
When you're binging, you don't need previously on. You don't need next on. You just need the next button. Yeah.
They finally put the skip on for that for most things.
I guess as that camera pulls back from this exiting scene, you see the corn and crops and all that stuff. So it looks like they had turned the observatory into like a full settlement, right? With crops and all.
You mean it's not just a bunch of raiders?
It might be,
Not-
but either way, they're dead. So on this episode, you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Anything that came up you found interesting? I
Two
think
very
we've
quick
covered a
little
lot.
things.
Okay.
Yeah, just because one of the things we've been talking about throughout a lot of the episodes are sort of these duos that we like, whether you're team, what was it, Thadamus or Moosey,
Maxie.
right? Yeah, or Maxie.
Moosey.
Okay.
Oh, maybe we got to go with that now.
Goosey Moosey.
So with the Thadamus one, it was like, man, that one, at first I was like, oh, it's broken up now, it's gone. I was like, man, we're not going to get that anymore. But I was like, oh, wait, no, it could happen. We don't know in season 2 or what down the road, what could happen. We could still have like Thaddeus as a ghoul, right? And hanging out with Maximus, doing whatever. I don't know. So not giving up on that combo there, that team.
If anyone's going to survive at this point, it might be Thaddeus because, he seems a little bit indestructible.
Yeah. And then the other duo that you mentioned just happened this episode that I was sad because it was a fun duo. Reg and Woody are being split up, like you said. And I thought that was like those two were like a fun little duo to follow along with. So that was sad.
Yeah, we liked them too. Any other observations, guys, about this one?
It's more of a question. It's true that the serum that turns you into a ghoul is pre-war, right? Is that canon? Like, do they explain that in the games?
There
What's
are
the story
a couple.
there?
So yeah, this is I'm glad we're getting into this. So there is a pre-war serum that was developed that could turn you into a ghoul. We see it in Fallout 4, and it's used by both Edgar Winter, talked about, or Eddie Winter, and Hancock. Wrong one.
He might have looked like a ghoul, but...
And there may have been other doses used at the time. This is in the Boston area, but that doesn't mean that there weren't other concoctions or chemicals. And again, this might also be an original concoction from available chemicals that this doctor came up with. But we only know he's a ghoul because that's their assumption. And Thaddeus and Maximus, not the brightest bulbs in the power armor. Okay. So it could be something else. And there are a lot of theories out there. For instance, in Fallout 76, we have serums, mysterious serums that are used from a recombinant DNA. But there's a serum called Healing Factor, and it will automatically heal you pretty quickly over time without a stim pack or anything like that from some pretty serious wounds. Could be that.
What was the downside to that serum? I'm forgetting right now.
I believe it reduces your maximum HP. I think it reduces your maximum hit points on that one where you constantly heal.
Like permanently, you lose max HP?
As long as you mutated. Yeah, so with the serum 76, everything has a downside. So like Egghead will increase your intelligence, but lower your strength. Or there are a few others, like one might increase your agility. Scaly Skin will give you extra defense against energy weapons, but you do less damage with energy weapons, stuff like that, how they all work. So it could be a serum like that. But Ray had another theory that we talked about before, right? Where it could actually be connected to Lorenzo's serum. Am I remembering correctly?
I don't remember that.
No, so maybe you didn't say that, but talk about a really strong serum. If somehow that's something from Fallout 4, which we won't spoil for you, Stephen, but it's a pretty good quest.
Quite the quest.
So just since I brought it up, so yeah, it gives you 300% health regeneration, that serum, the healing factor serum, and the
Yeah.
negative effect is minus 55% chems. So like using stim
Oh.
packs for Radaway or things like that are less effective.
Cares.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gets you dependent on that drug instead of the other drugs.
Here's stim packs are 55% less effective because your health regenerates.
In the heat of battle, it can be hard, but as soon as you're out of battle, it starts regenerating. Or does healing factor work all the time? Not just does healing factor work in
No,
battle?
it does not work in
You're right.
battle.
You're right.
no.
It's only out of battle, right?
But yeah, so that's a good question. So yeah, it did exist pre-war. There are a couple of the possibilities it could be, and it could be something completely different. We don't know. There are a lot of little hints and hooks and things that they don't totally explain, which I think makes it really kind of cool and makes it more fun to talk about too. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, so Mysterious Serum doesn't heal you. It gives you +5 strength, +50 damage resistance, and negative 36,000 radiation.
So it'll remove all your rads and make you stronger, but it doesn't actually heal you.
And Lorenzo Cabot is the only source.
How long does the effect last?
It's a long time.
Okay.
It's long enough. I take it just at the edge of the glowing sea,
Mm-hmm.
and I can go to all the way to Virgil's without any trouble.
Back again?
Well, you fast travel back.
It's a one-way trip. Well, awesome, guys. Thank you so much, Ray, Andrew, Will, and Steven, for joining to discuss this episode. And thank you, listeners, for joining us as well. We appreciate you tuning into Vault Talk for these recaps. This has been episode 7, The Radio. Next week, we'll be discussing episode 8, the final episode, aptly titled The Beginning. As a reminder, you can listen to our regular show, The Fallout Feed, on podcast services everywhere. So tune into us there. And until next time, we'll see you in the California Wasteland.